Hello.
What's up? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, thank you. Thank you. Good to see you as always. Different headset you have on, huh?
Yes,
Yes, yes. We
using
do
a
see your
mic.
little boom mic, but
I know. It's,
yeah,
yeah, for once I'm not. I'm going to try something different, but when I coach, it's nice to have that because then I can use my board or whatever else and move. But
right, right. Cool. Well, let's see. All right. I actually have the two screens. I should be able to see what's going on. Beautiful Animated is in the house. Welcome, Black Man Unfiltered. Hello, sir. I believe he's listening in. He's attending to his family stuff. We have CBN behind the scenes here, working the channels for us and pressing the buttons and making things happen. It's like the glue. Like, don't sleep on the technicians and don't sleep on the mods. Those are the ones
right.
who get it going. So, welcome
Mm-hmm.
everyone to the Black Man Unfiltered Network. I'm Dr. Nakumbe with Coach K. Always an honor to be here with you. So, thank you for
Right.
this opportunity. How was your week?
Can't complain. Really hot, but
Yeah,
cannot complain. How about your week?
good. When you say hot, but our weather here, shoot, I haven't even kept up with like, yeah, I haven't been out much, but I haven't kept up with like how I didn't even notice. Wow, interesting, interesting. I haven't even noticed.
I
Is it like humid hot for you or the heat?
Yeah, and it's just, well, I guess it's pretty normal, but it's just humid in Ohio.
Yep.
It's just so humid.
Okay. I think Black Man Unfiltered said it was 100. You say 300 and something degrees down there.
That's
Um, yeah, it was
insane.
hot, hot, hot. Well, anyway, well, good. I'm glad you survived the heat. and uh, and back for another fun episode. Now, this particular topic, as it says, is part one of a three-part series. The conversation I actually have in like 8 hour workshops, so like two 4 hour workshops or a span. So it'll be about three shows for us just because of the particular dialogue that we'll be having, but the actual topic can I mean, like I said, I've done a 8 hour long day workshop on it. And I usually do these to a few audiences. I've worked on this particular topic with men only. And the men, doesn't matter race or anything like that, but men because of the unique men issues. Like there's a sort of men issues, and I don't mean like modern day talk or a man is this and a woman is that. I mean, like the historical man, I should be, I'm supposed to, I'm responsible. So some of the traditional talk and some of the misogynistic talk, but what it comes down to is the belief system that they have, that they were raised by. So it's not even like that man per se, let's say a 26-year-old. It's like, oh, good, you're talking to this 26-year-old. But really, I'm talking to that 26-year-old about things, an entire core system, a belief system that they grew up in. And then same for women. I've done this group or a lecture, a workshop for women specifically. Same thing. Not a who's which gender is worse or blah blah blah. Nothing to do with that, and nothing about a man trying to tell a woman about how to be a woman. So it's not that either. I just talk about some of how the core beliefs have impacted them, and then the different set of responsibilities that comes with being a mother, that comes with being a wife or a girlfriend, and then the rules of society, how they can be unfair to either gender. But I talk about allowing the women to talk about what they consider to be some of the unfair rules. And so if you go back 20, 30 years, I'm talking, okay, I've been doing this presentation since, is it 2000? Maybe? No, 2005. 2005. So I'm working at the hospital.
Wow. So even before
Yeah.
the big I internet.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yes, yes,
Wow.
yes, 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 yes. Because a lot of my comedy days, my comedy days are actually, people are like, I want to see it, I want to see it. But there was no YouTube.
Oh.
In my comedy days, 88, 89, 90, 94, we weren't doing YouTube. Yahoo
Right.
Messenger. Yahoo Messenger. I don't know if you remember, or even know what that is, or remember what that is.
Kind of like I am, like that type
Yeah,
of thing.
it was. It was. Yahoo was on
Or
the scene way
AOL, and yeah.
before, or AOL, mail. The videos that I was doing, but they had the VHS tape, and then
Yeah.
they had some tapes were like 3/4 or whatever. Um, so anyway, but the
Yeah.
presentation, this topic anyway, I've been speaking to it. And there's a specific reason right around that timing, because of stuff that was going on in my life that I realized, whoa, I claim to want to take action, but that action is not happening. And it could be for
Mm.
anything, anything. I swear, I promise to be a better. I make an agreement with myself to do this. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to go to work on time. I mean, all these agreements that I made with myself and realizing, huh, I sound like my clients. I mean, we're the same technically. It's just that their filter system, and these were my clients then were families that had an adolescent that was using
Mm.
drugs.
Mm.
So the major difference was we both have stressors, but what they used for coping was different than what I was
Mm.
using for coping. But both
Mm-hmm.
methods of coping still have consequences,
That's right.
right? So anyway, started this workshop and it took off. I mean, people were like, "Oh, you got to do it again," and then you got to join. Like, you need to join us together so he can hear how he's messed up, and she needs to hear how I'm right. And it's like, huh, huh, huh. So yeah, it was like, no, no, no. It's not about. It's really about how are we sabotaging opportunity because of a core belief system. And then what feeds, so much like a
Mm.
plant, what feeds that vine. So wanted to be able to have that conversation. Now, as a group, our listeners, you get to decide on how you utilize this information as far as what do you want to work on? Like what stuck points would you want to get past? Now, I was inspired to have the conversation via the YouTube streets with you, Coach K, as I was listening to the Harris Tribe Media Group. So Mr. He Said and Mrs. She Said.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to their channels
Yeah.
and to their shows, and Mrs. She Said was like pouring into the community about her trials and saying this stuff is real. It's almost like if some famous person came out and said, I too suffer from blah 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 blah. And it's like,
Mm.
what? He, she, they, oh, what? So I was listening, like, man, this is like you want to talk about keeping it real, but in a way that their audience could grasp it. Because when I think about my audience outside of YouTube, I would say it's a very it's very because I'm not even talking about race. I say, well, a majority of my clients are Caucasian and African American clients, or other non-white clients that I have, but they still have to be able to reach a certain price point, or to pay my fees or something like that. So they still are middle class and higher, but minus the classes, each each class still has the potential to deal with depression. Each class still has can deal with anxiety. Each class can still deal with procrastination, low self worth. You name it, on and on and on. It's just the degree of it. I mean, you can have $1 billion, and sure, it may appear that they don't have the same problems, but they do have problems.
Right.
So, um, as I was listening to Mrs. She Said, it was able to hit home for me on multiple levels. One, as a black man, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, the ignorant side of me that would not take action. I don't know how much you hear
Mm.
about men who don't go to the doctors,
Yeah,
right?
I do
They,
hear that.
oh, I'm fine, I'm fine. Everything from tough macho, what we were taught, you know, and I know Scam likely talks about this. I've heard him talk about it a few times about tradition, traditional. You do what I say
Mm-hmm.
because I said so. You go to the doctor because I said so. You take this medicine because we prescribed it,
Mm-hmm.
right? But how much do we actually investigate? I mean, okay, take it. Yes, got it. So it was able to hit home to me as a male, like, oh, yeah, I don't do this, I don't do that, as a black man, as a professional, as a friend. I mean, hit me at multiple levels. And I'm like, mm. And so I sent the message saying, great show. And she had replied, like, glad you listened, da 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 da. You know, we're just trying to help build, just trying to help move people forward. And I know you've heard me say it a few times, and we actually have said it on this show, where the impact of our behavior really goes about 2 to 3 generations forward. The impacts 2 to 3 generations forward. The same way I say the trauma that impacted me would actually go back 2 to 3 generations. I can blame my mother,
Mm-hmm.
but where did she, how was she impacted, or what impacted her?
Right.
Grandmother, great grandmother, so on and so on.
Right.
So, Mr. He said, jumped, actually had a chance to jump on one of his shows, and it was unique because he was breaking down movies and the messaging that was behind it. And so I don't know about you, but I
Interesting.
love going to the theater. I am a so live theater, movie theater, cinema. I'm if it's coming out, I'm there. Comedy, romance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you. I do it. Documentaries, horror, scary, drama, action. Dun,
Yeah,
dun,
yeah.
dun. Oh, I'm into it.
Yeah.
But the messaging, I mean, we get influenced, especially as a kid. If I watch uh, part four, uh, oh, it just came out this year, part four, Keanu Reeves.
Oh, the
Um,
John Wick stuff?
Thank you, John Wick. All
Okay.
right, loved it. But there are a couple of scenes in it, and I don't want to ruin for anyone who hasn't watched it yet. There are a couple of scenes because that involve stunts, and that could a fake like really. So the plane went to the moon, and the person held on, and nothing happened. Like fake stunts would just kill it for me.
Right.
So, but as a kid,
Mm.
would I have believed that if I hold on super tight, maybe not to the moon, but if I held on super tight to an airplane that's going down a runway 150, 200 miles an hour, right? If I and the jet engine right there in front of me blowing, if I hold on tight, I would have believed
Right.
that I could if I hold on tight. Now, again, as an adult, and I haven't had the experience of being on the plane, but I had a chance to see some of these people who do the uh, indoor skydiving practice, like you know what I'm talking about, where they it's like you're just in front of a
Yeah.
giant fan with the thing on,
Mm-hmm.
and I see how they do just in the indoor or whatever, and that thing's not blowing 200 miles an hour. So the reality, maybe that's what it is. You know, there's a reality piece to it that I have, but the
Right.
influence of certain messages, and Mr. He said was breaking this down because some of the movies seem so believable, like people can relate to it, and some people are so gullible and they eat up the message. And pending the society you live in, they even dictate, like they govern what they want you to hear and what they don't want you to hear. I
Right.
mean, how many times have we talked about the news and how they
Mm.
slant what they want us to know?
Right.
It was interesting the other day. I was looking into some of these topics on the YouTube streets, and I thought,
Yeah.
man, have we just? I use some other words. Did we just goof around the last 5 years? Like, if you watch the news, or what's going on within the last 5 years, the focus, look at the focus of what's been going on. What have we been focusing on? And so I'm looking at this like, oh, sexual stuff, sexual stuff, uh, I identity,
Mhm.
identity, feelings,
Mhm.
feelings, cancel culture, cancel, cancel, comedy, wasn't funny, insulted, feelings, cancer, cancel, medical, COVID, COVID,
Mhm.
CO, we're in the, watch out, oh, sick, death, die, ooh, feelings, identity, oh, mask, mask, we're not wearing the mask, the hell with the mask, oh, this, oh, ooh, where, like, the years have been eaten up, as our sister Take Heed would say, on foolery. Now, I don't, yeah, I don't want to take away from those who've been impacted. I mean, so if I talk about death from COVID, it's legit. I'm not talking about
Right.
those who've been truly impacted and hurt by it. No,
Right.
lost
Right.
jobs, so on.
Oh
But I
yeah.
mean the fact that it was a world, it impacted the world. And it was
Mhm.
interesting how some continued to report it and some didn't. How some managed the money part of it, meaning I was ready to go back to the Philippines to visit, but there are certain towns there that I wouldn't even be able to get back without first taking a COVID. Oh,
You're good. A certain, I like to say we could say a poke, maybe.
a
Is that
poke.
what you're
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Oh, one of these content people that I listen to, they when they say the words. Well, yeah, a certain poke, but pending the town I do, you would need a test, and
Oh, okay.
pending the test results, you couldn't get on the plane. But pending how much, then I could get on the plane. So, but it was just interesting
Interesting.
how these multiple countries, places impacted, but the way it's reported, how much was about hope, how much of it was about devastation, and how much are the listeners hearing about it? How about the places that didn't even hear anything and it was just low key? And if you got sick, you got sick. And then what
Right.
places had massive outbreaks versus the places that didn't? That whole
Right.
debate about Africa was so hot. That region is so hot, it burned, right? Like the particles in
It's,
the air, because that's why they
oh,
only had like 2 cases, and some parts of the eastern side of the world had very, very, very small amount of cases.
I'm gonna keep my thoughts to myself. Okay.
Right, right. That's what I'm saying. But that's it. Like, that's interesting. But how much time was invested the world, like, and the messaging? So what if I'm thinking like, what? Only 2 people got it. No one got sick. But then I'm hearing over here they did get sick, and I'm hearing over here they just don't. How much of the world in the last 5 years have been focusing on things that there's a certain music, there's not music, there are a couple of apps
Mhm.
that you dance and you shake. Now, the originator of that app is not in the USA. Interesting that their version of the app is not even called the same name.
Oh.
Okay? Now, the originator never called it that. From what I hear, the person who created that app never really even called it that. They never added the 2 T's to it. They have actually
Oh yeah.
it starts with a D, letter D as in Dave for their version.
Mm.
But their version, just do the research. Don't take my word for it. Get it if you can get into their network, because different GOO search engines and stuff are banned over there.
Right.
And their version of this music thing, it has people graduating from school. It has people
Mm-hmm.
eating dinner as families. It has people
Mm-hmm.
like either educational things or informative things or motivational things. Now look
Right.
at our version, and I mean, trust me, I watched them, so I'm not a like oh
Right.
no. I mean, but when it first came, it was the dance and the moves. Now I did find it interesting that most dance moves really didn't show butt shots,
Mm-hmm.
like because you got to look forward to watch the thing, right? And then like you
Right.
might get some, and you get that one cheek to pop up in the air like pow, that
Mm-hmm.
boom. They would do some of those moves,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
then interesting enough, where it got to people maybe creating their own moves, and then we got kind of the rear end version of it. Like, whoa,
Right.
hi, oh, and really exciting. And then I looked at different ethnic backgrounds, and I found it interesting the ones that, like, just even on different sites, even dating sites or different things,
Mm-hmm.
how many of these people, every single profile has a butt shot. And then you
Mm-hmm.
take this other ethnic group, and there's not a single butt shot. And some of them you're lucky if you get past the chest.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not here to talk about which one is bad, which one is good, but I do invite us to think about how much of that messaging, where did that messaging come from that this view is the best view and this view is the best view? This view shows the value in what I have and what we've always had. And this view shows the value. Huh. Now, I noticed how we went from long messages and reading to now. Remember when the other profile, the other platform, 160
Characters.
characters,
Yeah.
160. Awesome for like quick, boom. You gotta get straight to the point, right? And then it helps. Like if you were a text or whatever, you really learned how to fine tune your statements, right?
Right.
But the impact, so the positive is learning how to reduce what you want to say.
Right.
The impact of that, if a person, if you have some messaging out there, if you can't get something done in 8 seconds,
It
okay?
falls flat.
Research says 8 seconds. Marketing,
Yep.
you have to hit home within 8 seconds. Remember blogging, right? Articles.
Yeah. Funny, I love this stuff. I love reading long stuff. I hate texting. If it's a long text, I'll get on my computer so I can type it up because I just can't stand doing this.
Right. Well, I'll be honest. I was not a texter at first. I got sucked into the technology thing, which is going to be part of this conversation as well. But I got sucked into the technology thing. Now that's probably 99% of my communication.
Yeah, yeah.
But that statement. I'll just say this for now because that what I'm talking about now is actually going to be later. But I will say this part. When that statement, money doesn't make you do more. Money just you.
Yeah, it just
What is it?
it's not it just makes you more of who you are or something
Of
like
who you
that.
are. Yes, yes. So the texting. If I were to be honest, I am going to be honest. The texting, if for me, if I think about that as the money, it really just highlighted more of who I am, like how I got to hide. Like it was an ability, it was a resource, it was a method for me to be able to not have, because you make the phone call. I mean, I was able to master making 2 phone calls at the same time, so I intentionally get the voicemail. Hello, you've reached the.
Here is a
I know, right?
oh yeah, that makes me
Uh,
anxious.
yeah, and if they answered, hello, oh, hey, I was just talking to you. I got your voicemail. What happened? What happened?
Right,
And then
right.
texting, I don't have to. So, uh, the ideas that were taken away. So Mr. He said breaks down these movies and the ideas and the themes and the messaging. And I thought, oh my gosh, for the blind, they were really led astray. And for those who could see, it's like they're watching a magic trick. They have to figure out how much of this is real. How much
Mm-hmm.
of this is real? And if my view is only this much, if I only have this much of a view, if I live in a community where I only see this much of the community daily, then this is my perception of all things. This is my perception of all things. And some people
Right.
who live in one community, work in other, they get two perceptions, two views. But for the most part, the world views that we have is limited to the view that we have. And so I get defensive. It will make total sense for someone to become defensive when you say, no, that's not how it works. Bull, that is how it works. Right? And even with my eyes open like this, no, that is how it works. Because I don't care, but my eyes, no matter how large they get, they won't grow past this view if I haven't seen it, if I haven't heard it, if I haven't lived it. Now, I don't like to get on airplanes, even though I've been out of the country. I don't like to get on, and I'll shoot. So I'll tell you in a hot second, we should go to so and so. Click, we'll find it on one of these things here. Oh, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? That's the same thing we'll see. Look at that. Oh, woo, you know,
Right.
I'm
Right.
not, it's right there. What do we need to go all get all, no. But when you experience it, mm, I didn't understand racism in New York, in Minnesota, the way when I lived in New York. I lived in Spanish Harlem, but we were talking about the melting pot. Dominican Republican, Puerto Rican, black, white, uh, Latino. I mean, it was,
Mm-hmm.
and then Italian. I mean, you go to uh, Greenwich Village. I go uptown, downtown, Harlem, Bronx. The different boroughs, and then you had your borough to borough problems, Manhattan boys, versus Brooklyn or Bronx versus, you had that type of stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
racism, like to be told you're a black boy, um, huh? And I go to the Philippines and they're just as dark as I am. I'm like, oh, I, because in Japan, like right over there, and they look white, and China's right over there, and they look white, and it's like, wow. But when you live it when you experience it. To
Right.
Detroit, to New York, Atlanta. I mean, I've been to different places, but still the view. So I have a different city view. I have a different state view, but it's all within the USA view. I have a
Right.
regional view. I have a coastal view, but it's still within the USA view. And it's still within the messaging that I'm receiving from the news outlets, from the entertainment outlets, from the media, from the movies, from the songs. The songs. I don't know about you, Coach K, what music you like and the messages you take away from them. Country songs to me was rap in a different beat, but it was always some problems. He loved me so, but he was a drunk. I
Yeah.
don't even sing, but
Yeah.
it was there was always some
Right.
problems.
Right.
R&B was always turn out the lights, right? I mean, depending on what you listen to,
Yeah.
but it was still about love and just fun, and it just depends on what you listen to. But the messaging that goes with the culture. All right, so I got that from
Right.
Mister He said, and between the two in the Harris tribe, I said, hmm. So okay, Mister Funny, comedian. Okay, Mister Educator, public speaker, and you used to speak on this. It's interesting when you get paid, you find different motivation, but while you're not getting paid, you have the same motivation to help. And when you're a helper, and this is what we're going to get into, when you're a helper, you have to know what comes with it. You have to know what comes with it. Because once you get your butt kicked a couple of times, it'd be very easy to get discouraged, very easy to get hurt, very easy to feel. I should say feel hurt, discouraged, disappointed. Disappointed. And I like you to picture, the Target store and that logo they have, the bullseye. So advocates, when you're an advocate, you have to picture you wear that huge bullseye. The Sir Hales, the Black Man Unfiltered, the Lost in Translations, the you name it, the Take Heed. Oh my gosh, have you? I don't know if you take heed to the message. That sister, take heed to my message. That's right. I'm starting some shit I'm exaggerating. I'm exaggerating, but yeah,
I love her stuff.
She putting herself out there now. All of them, the beautiful animated, like she didn't have all of her shows, but she's on the shows.
Mm-hmm.
So the community wide, and I'm missing a lot of people, but you know who you are, that you advocate. Okay, even you, Coach K, when you're on these shows and when you're advocating and supporting and giving back to the community on these shows, well, imagine you're standing up. And when you stand up, you're the biggest target in the room. We can actually all have on target signs or bullseyes. We can actually all have on bullseyes when we're sitting down. But when we stand up, we're the largest target in the room from all angles.
Right.
And sometimes people are considering themselves helpful, but not realizing the harm that they cause. And if I'm standing and I'm a target and I think that I'm really doing something, there might be another that's really saying stop and don't and be careful, and they go to pull me down. And when they go to pull me down, they're not pulling me down because they hate. They're not pulling me down because they want me to fail. They're pulling me down because they're saying you are out there and about to get your head blown off. But I'm fighting now. I'm fighting with stop, no, and they say, fine, go figure it out for yourself. I take a couple steps forward and then boom, something hits me and I go back with the audacity. I go back to say, you didn't even stop me. You didn't stop me. You didn't even care enough. And then you have those who hear the message, but they personalize it so much. Even though I'm speaking this way, we are all aligned this way, facing forward. I stand up, and when I speak this way, but someone personalizes it and feels like, one, you don't speak for all of us. You don't speak for me. Even though we're in the same room together, the same container together, you don't speak for me. So now I have a fight this way where I'm not, well, I wasn't trying to hurt you. I'm trying to help. But what you're asking for doesn't help me in my situation. Coach K, there was a day when it was about the family. And I'm not talking like in the 1800s. I'm talking about there was a day, because if our farmers in the world, 2023, our farmers, well, now they have more robotic. They have, for those who get the money, for those who get the money to buy more of the robotic automated machines, the equipment.
Yeah.
But you take a family and each one of those family members are doing work. When it comes to farming, each one does some work. You got the cow, person's responsible. You got the sweeper dealing with food. Every family member does work.
Right.
And here in the States too, I'm talking about in local, but anywhere in the world, farming is a totally different community. And I say, but now, so I'm in this room where I'm the largest target and I might be advocating, but if you don't say the right word, so if I say mothers, now listen, I want to talk to the mothers, and there's a mother sitting there like, well, what? Well, first of all, I hope you don't think that fat belly of yours means you having a baby or something. What? What's that have to do? Well, I mean, how are you speaking for mothers just because you got a big ass stomach? I mean, what qualifies you as the mother?
Right.
Now I've lost focus because now I want to address, listen, that's not, and then for the people who say, listen, I'm not going to get involved in that. I'm not going to lose energy on that. But then now there's a person that feels dismissed. And let me be clear, Coach K, you cannot keep everyone happy. You cannot keep everyone happy. All right? But and normally I do my theatrics and I swing on my stuff and all that. I won't do that tonight, but I will. I want you to picture one of those water jugs, that you put on like on a water machine, turn it upside down, goo 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 goo. You know what I'm talking about? The gallon
Mm-hmm.
tank. I want you to picture an empty one of those, and for every time I talk about these things, we're just putting in a penny. We're putting in a penny or a nickel or a quarter. And eventually, I don't know if you ever like filled one of those up and went to the bank. Have you ever done that?
I it's therapeutic to roll coins for me, so
Yeah.
I don't let him get that far. But my dad did. He has a
Okay.
big, yeah.
Yeah. Man,
Never
if you
took to
ever
the
go.
bank, but it's huge.
Okay. Oh, uh, people used to laugh because we would try and sell cookies.
Mm-hmm.
But then, believe it or not, we used to go over and just like, can we get a couple of quarters? And that thing would fill up, and I'm like, okay, so we got it. Man, that thing would fill up. We get $800, $900, $1,000 of coins. It's like, wow. But I want you to think about the weight. So the weight of every time someone who's not pleased because I didn't say the correct word, someone who's not pleased because they didn't feel represented, someone who's not pleased because they didn't feel that I respected their view, their mission, their whatever. Disrespect is huge and it's real. Someone felt traumatized by what I said. And not all of my sayings are innocent. Someone might be impacted by what I say. And I can't cover every mission. But I want you to imagine now I have to carry around this jug, similar to a mother carrying around a baby always. I mean, they get used to it. You can see mothers doing
Mm-hmm.
stuff with a baby. Hey, I mean, cooking, doing things with a baby, like wow.
Right, right.
And what's funny is because I'm big into like supporting and giving gifts, and I was so proud that I brought this person this like this big wraparound thing, like you wrap it around the baby and it goes all around your body and stuff, and the baby's just in there like a kangaroo
Yeah.
pouch. And I was so hurt when I saw it was still packaged. Because this thing cost it was like $80.
Oh,
Like they still had it
right.
packaged. They said, man, please, by the time you wrap all that stuff around, by the time you do all, because the thing you can make it different sizes. You can do. They're like, please, what do you think these hips are for? I'm like, but huh? Well, like you can put it on the baby on your back while you're cooking. You can put it on the. But I was talking to a
Oh,
mother who was like, I've been doing this for a while. Thank you for the convenience.
right.
But what do you think we were doing before them things came out? And you spent $80, but I
Mhm.
could have just took a pillow thing, and do whatever. I could have done my own or a
Right,
sheet,
right,
right? I could have did whatever. So now both are hurt. I'm hurt.
right.
I feel disrespected. I feel undervalued. I feel not right. But why? 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 I don't think we take enough time to look at the why. Let me hit a couple more points and now I'll turn it over to more kind of dialogue with us and those
Mm-hmm.
in the group. Let me just give a couple of shout outs here. I see we have some more people
Yeah.
joining us. Beautiful animated roller skater Texas girl. All right. All right. What's up with them skates? Look at that. Take He's in the house. And CBN. Boom, boom, boom. I'm going up, so I should probably go down.
We have Andre also.
Andre, all
Andre.
right. Welcome. Hello, hello, hello. Shout out to Alexis from Texas. Welcome. A couple people who may not be here, but let me just give out some shout outs for the replay. Mr. and Mrs. She Said, Sir Hale, Lost in Translation. I haven't seen in a while. Freezy. What's up, Freezy? If you're out there in the world, what's up? What's up? What's up?
I heard him
Yes,
on a
yes,
show
yes.
earlier today, but yeah, hey, Free. I know I haven't seen him over here in a little bit, but hey, Freezy.
Yeah, yeah. Information Man, the Information Man. Blah, blah, blah. A few other people. I'm just thinking. Queen Smiley. A few. There's so many that I've been actually been
Mm-hmm.
meeting and talking to, and they've allowed me to share space with them. Pastor
Mm-hmm.
Sheila, if you're listening, glad to have you listen in. Salute to you, Coach K. You have any folks, peeps, faves?
All the people you mentioned, I mean, there's so many, but specifically ones that come over here or just in
Hey,
general.
anywhere in the world, anywhere in the world. If they
Oh,
tune in and hear their name, they're like, "Oh my gosh, Coach K said
oh,
my name."
that Be like, I'm on the spot.
Oh, well, if you think of it, just opportunity. If you
You
think of it,
know, you know. Let's say that.
yeah, 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 yeah. Um, actually, I saw him here the other day. Is the guy that we talked to one time backstage. And now it's gonna kill me. Little podcast. What's up? I haven't
Mhm.
seen you in a while, but I saw him a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Everyone.
the dating, the date to marry.
Oh, yeah.
Lee
Dating to
Di and
marriage, I think.
James. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep, yep, yep. All right. So let me hit this next spot, which actually more modern type stuff.
Okay.
Mandrel, scam likely, uh, Sir Payne, our Payne,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Paul, Mr. Bennett. I know we've recently had more of these conversations. We've had a lot of these conversations lately. Shoo,
Mm-hmm.
where we've talked about happiness. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of talk has been about happiness, and so you and I have been. We had a couple of shows on happiness, but how I want to put this into the equation is because based on these core beliefs that we grow on, we actually let those dictate our happiness. But the core beliefs, if they belong to someone else, meaning they were seeded by someone else. And yes, I grow on them, but if they're not my root, like if they're not my DNA, it's not my DNA. So I'm gauging my kind of internal desires and happiness and all that based on these pillars that I grew up on. And so sometimes there's a disconnect. And one of the things Shushu and Mandrell were talking about the other day, trauma. It was a unique question of can a mother pass on trauma to her baby even before the baby is born? And one of the big
Mm.
arguments I hear on the YouTube streets is I hear a lot about, and I'm a mock scam, the women's and the women's and the women's. It is always the women's fault. I'm usually pretty neutral. It's everybody's fault. And
For
then,
sure.
but what was unique the other day? They were like, well, if you go back to that generation, well, but then it was whose fault, a man or a woman? You go back to the other generation, whose fault was it, a man or a woman? Into consideration, no matter how much we may agree or disagree, if you take into consideration our upcoming generations are going to be saying whose fault, he, she, or they,
Huh.
he, she, or they. They'll be questioning like who, not trying to find blame, but whose fault for future generations. So same with us, we say, well, in the last X number of years, it was the certain movement. The years before that, it was the other movement. Before that, it was the
Mhm.
war. It was this and that and that and that. And then someone told me the other day, well, if you go back to when humans started, pending which route you go, either we were the fish,
Right. I don't even
right?
know. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we flopped on land. I had to be a whale, I guess, but I flopped on the land, or we were the monkeys, or you believe in Adam and Eve. So someone told me very interesting. We were just talking about this other day on with Black Man Unfiltered. If you go all the way back, is it really Adam and Eve to start? Because they don't have a generation to go back. If you follow that, and I also
Right.
heard there's
Right.
some other people here on Earth. So again, I don't know the whole story, but if you go back to that and say, well, they don't have a generation before them, so that's where it all started. And then the debate is, well, who messed up first? Because if you say, well, she ate the apple, and Almighty told her, hey, don't mess with them apples, and don't mess with the apples. But he said, well, the man was supposed to lead. He was here first. How come he didn't say stop? Because
Right.
if you listen to some of these YouTube things, oh man, he's supposed to. You sit down when I tell you, you better. Well, how come that dude didn't say, don't eat that apple? And then I heard there was a snake involved.
All right.
Again, I wasn't there, so I don't want to make something that's not, and I don't want to influence anyone. But I heard there was a snake involved, and the snake was sexy. Like, take a bite. Now, I also heard they were naked,
Right.
but not paying that any mind.
Right. Like it
And
didn't mean
people
the
say,
same.
can you be friends? Can you be nude around each other and not have anything happen? Well, if you go back to the first two that was here, if you go to that story, they were naked all day long.
Yeah. And we're told to multiply, however, but
Right.
yeah.
Well, but I understand. My understanding was that was after biting the fruit.
Oh.
because she got a taste, and then he's like, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Here, bite this." And he,
Right,
this is just
right.
what I heard. This is what I heard. Now, I also heard took a rib from his body, like
Mm-hmm.
got like pluck it. Now, there's also the belief of, well, everything comes out of a womb. So the earth came out of a whatever, and it was the right. So what was the womb? Mother Nature, the first one,
Right,
the womb. So to me, that all sounds like woman. Uh,
right, right,
but again, that's another whole debate. So it wasn't
right,
really she was laying down, and then the rib was plucked from her. And
right,
so here you go, right? Or because my understanding, again, this is all just from what there's nothing is factual. I'm just talking. From my understanding
right.
was there was nothing for Adam to do. I mean, like he was just walking around, like there was some lines and stuff, like just there was nothing for him to do. So
Right.
why did he? But then he needed help.
Yeah. To name the animals, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Which
I
I'm
mean,
pretty
there's nothing
sure,
but
but I even have to like, I don't even like saying because like I would have to look. Yeah.
yeah, it's deep. So he was doing nothing, but he needed help, or he needed a
Hmm.
companion. They were nude and didn't get all into, damn, ooh, turn around, and let me see, and ooh,
Right.
there
Right.
was none of that. There was none of that. She didn't ask him,
Right.
what's the little round things on you? There was nothing. There was
Right.
no embarrassment. He jumped up, and right? There was no
Mm-hmm.
covering, and but let a fire break out on the house or something. There's people who go back in the house in the flame to go get some. Oh, I gotta cover up. They can't see it. Anyway, I'm being silly. So
Right.
if you
Right.
go
Right.
far, if you go that route to the first, you say, well, those two. But then there's still debate with those two of who did it. Well, my question is, did we get to the point where it doesn't even matter who started it? We're all impacted by it. And how will it end? Doesn't matter who started it because we're all impacted. And every generation before us adds a little bit to it. And so the generations, each generation has a story. In the same way Mr. He said was breaking down the movies, well, each generation sends the next generation an influential story, a
Hmm.
story. And pending how much you buy into that story, you bite hard on that story and you refuse to let that happen to you. I'm not going to be no slave. I heard what happened to my great 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 grandparent.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm holding on to that story. I didn't live the experience. So people say, well, do you have to live the experience to know? And if you do the research, you do the history, you know that it happened. But then there's the divide. You have those who
Right.
say, we're still, and you're treating us. And then you have those who say, you weren't even here then. So why are you tripping about it?
Right.
Why are you attacking this white person? They weren't even, and then you should attack all white people because they. So
Right.
there's both sides of the story, but each generation passes on a story, and each story has a way of significantly influencing people. Now, can you pass on trauma? So that was the question I was talking about from Shushu and Mandrell's show. So from my understanding, when I say my understanding now, this does have more research backed to my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So the Adam and Eve story, I've not researched as in depth, but this
Right. Right.
part here, trauma. So we're talking about trauma. It is a theory. There's a big debate if, and so Mandrell's show and Shushu show, they were talking about the free will. Do we
Mm.
will like do we have free will?
Mm.
And part of the thing was, and Joseph, uh, Paul Bennett, JT. Oh, shout out to JT. A few of us were saying, "Hey, wow, we're having a very healthy conversation about it." Jedi Mike,
Mm.
beautiful animated. So we were talking about, do we really have free will? And a few of us, I think, we landed together with the idea of everything's. Even if we say yes or no, we might make the decision, but that decision is still based on a potential consequence. That decision is still based on what resources I have. That decision is still based on around me. So is it my free will or is it my decision, but based on what's already there? And then some things where you might even put the two and two together, but was it part of your core belief system? So, true story, my father told me how when he was down south in Arkansas, he was traveling with my cousins on the Greyhound. And he would go,
Mhm.
they stop or whatever, and the colors only. And they stopped somewhere, and he asked, can he at least just fill up the baby bottle with water? And because it was a color only section, the white section only, they pointed him, but then the person took the bottle for him, but they filled it up with toilet water. And said, there you go. And I held on to that story.
Mhm.
But then one of my greatest heroes in New York,
Mhm.
Mr. Mr. Phil. Anyone know? Here's my story. I talk about Mr. Phil being my hero. Would show up places, even embarrass me. School play. He's in the. I'm bowing, thinking nobody's there for me. He's
Yeah.
what's the showing up at my school talking about he's my
Yeah.
dad. Hey man, come on man, don't be coming up in here talking
Right.
about. But I said, you're not my dad. He just leaned into me ever so gently. Well, where is he? So I have these conflicting messages. What do I do with it?
Mhm.
What we do with the messages, what we
Mhm.
do with anger, what we do with excitement, what we do with these messages also plays a role. So the trauma, I said, let me just quickly answer that. So the trauma part, it is a theory, it is a conversation, this debate about, well, how did the mother pass on trauma? So here's
Right.
again a clinical perspective, and
Mhm.
I don't debate on the YouTubes about perspective and theory. If the people bring research to me, great. I'm a researcher, so meaning I go research. So my projects took 7 years to do. So it takes time to do research, like before, during, and after. So if a person they say, well, give us cite and give us the what's the question, I'll go research it. Well, see, you didn't know. No, I know, but the way that I study, I don't like to read. Give me audio. Okay, give me. I don't like
Right.
to read. So all my stuff I learned, but once I take
Mhm.
what I need, I let the rest go. I couldn't tell you what I learned in my junior year of my college. I take what I need and I hold on to what I want to hold on to, and the rest is gone. But
Right.
trauma, since I am a board certified forensic counselor and
Mhm.
board certified forensic crisis intervention specialist, just big titles, but I deal
Mhm.
with trauma, and I
Right.
am EMDR in training, so in certification. So I'm EMDR
Oh,
skills trained, but I'm
yeah,
in
yeah.
certification. Uh,
You're
uh,
like in that process?
yeah, so you have to do 65 hours. I have like 30 something more
Great.
hours to go to
That's
become
great.
certified. But when you do your first 10 hours, then you're what's called skills trained. But I actually want to take it to the next level because I work with people who are first responders who have vicarious trauma, and I want to do advanced rapid trauma work and EMDR.
That we'll have
Um,
to talk about that. That's great.
yes,
EMDR has
yes,
been
yes.
really helpful for a lot of
Hmm.
people.
For a
We'll
lot of
talk about
people,
it. But yeah. Yeah.
I'm uh, trauma informed, trauma informed, and it seems like you don't know where you are, but again, a lot of these titles are jumping hoops. So I have the certifications, I have the licenses, but a lot of these things are jumping hoops. So I'm not really married like, oh, I am a, and I am a, and I am a, and
Mhm.
I'll get to that in a minute. But I'm maybe this sounds conceited, but I'm very humble. But if I laid out my resume, but anyway. So with
Yeah,
trauma,
yeah.
trauma CB, trauma informed CBT,
Mm.
uh, trained, certified through Rogers Hospital University, and DBT skills trained.
Mm.
All right, so you take just those alone.
Mhm.
Through those methods and lessons and research and blah blah blah, the idea is that you don't have touched as a 5, 6, 8 year old handled by some adult, and then I grow up later and I have actual dysfunction, depression, anxiety, PTSD, social phobias, all these different things, and then you don't. hand that to a baby. Like you don't, you don't say in the womb, here you go, and
All
you're going to
right.
be born with things. That's not the handoff. That's not the handoff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the argument is, well, can't you give it to the baby? So
Like
what?
through genes?
Right.
Is
So
that what they're okay?
but not even trauma. I'm not giving the baby trauma. All
Right.
right. And even the
Right.
genes are not trauma genes. Now there's also
Right.
physical trauma. If I'm pregnant,
Right.
and I bump a table or I
Right.
use injury, that's a physical trauma. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about
Right.
psychological or traumatic,
Right.
right? Actually, it's a brain injury.
Right.
So I'm not handing off trauma.
Right.
But when I'm stressed as a mother, so a female that is
Mhm.
stressed, they increase the amount of uh, cortisol, the chemical in the brain. They increase that. I'm
Right.
talking about high levels. I want you to imagine, and I actually normally do, I think you see my coloring book and stuff. I would normally show you, I would take a balloon and stick a needle through it, and the balloon doesn't pop.
Right.
But I
Right.
would I would stick in some dye in this balloon and take the needle out. And now you can shake the balloon and the dye doesn't come out. So if this is if I'm injecting into the placenta,
Mm.
okay, if I'm injecting, if I'm it's not an injection, but if I'm releasing
Right.
into the placenta
Mm-hmm.
this chemical,
Right.
and the chemical in the placenta is attached to it, feeds me, and
Right.
my DNA, my structure, physical structure, my science, all the science behind my nerve, everything is being designed, right, or created or developed
Yeah.
over the 9-10 months.
Right.
And this chemical that's pumped into me
Right.
has potential. So cortisol now, you heard the fat around your belly. I don't know if you know the stress. That's one of the side effects.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm releasing into the fetus. I'm pumping into the baby,
Yeah.
and the impact of that chemical is what leads to the baby being born with bio, like brain. So not handed to, not an environment, not a learned later.
Right.
They biochemical in the
Right.
brain. Now, when it impacts that kid, who knows? But now they already have this DNA.
Predisposed almost.
Yes, and we're talking about now depression,
Right.
anxiety, medical issues, high
Mm.
blood pressure,
Right.
okay, heart disease, even ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. And the government did the research, and so if you believe in the government, but there's tons of research about ACEs, ACES, adverse childhood experiences. And I'm talking about small things. I'm not talking about being handled by an adult as a kid. I'm talking about small things like, I love you, hoochie boochie boo, I love you. Every time I change a diaper, hoochie boochie boo, I love you, I love you, I love you. Oh, you went to stinky, oh, the stinky, but I love you.
Yeah.
Hear this part, Coach K. You went stinky, but I love you. You went stinky, but I love you. I turned up my nose. Oh, you went. I made a frown. Oh, but I love you. I love you. I love you. You went stinky. You shit this, stink up the whole damn place. Oh, God damn.
Mm-hmm.
But I love you. The reason I'm spanking you or beat you is because I love you. Ooh, you are lucky. I love you. Love you. Love you. And then one day we go to the store, and while we're in the checkout aisle, and the marketing people were wise enough to put all that junk in the aisle while you're waiting, because they know eventually you might lean over and want to buy a Snickers bar, and the kid grabs a Snickers bar, and you say, no. And even if you say it's soft, no. Oh, put it back. No. or if you say you put that shit down, either way, it goes against I love you.
Right.
That's an adverse childhood experience. And something as small and minute as that can impact the brain. And it won't show up for years later, but something as
Mm-hmm.
small as that to where it would impact my digestive system, okay, my breathing system, my mental
Mm-hmm.
health, my met. So it's not all these horrible things have to happen. ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and there's no perfect parenting.
Right.
You can take all the parenting classes you want. There is no perfect parenting because it can happen at school. I watched a video the other day out of honor for this network. Won't get into it other than to say there were people, adults, children watching other adults who only had on a string up the butt. Okay? Whatever your flavor is, whatever your party is, your business. As I've said, it impacts generations forward. And as I just explained about the ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, there's also
Mm-hmm.
something called early sexual activation. Okay? And people can research me because what qualifies you? I have done my time also with adolescent of, and we don't actually call them, actually, adolescents are not called ex offenders. Adults are called offenders. Adolescents, they just have behavior problems. They have problematic behavior problems that happen to be actually related.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When your earliest age of a client is 8 years old in the child protection system because they violated some sister of theirs or brother or
Mm-hmm.
whoever because of the imaging that's been in their head. When you have someone as early as 9 years old that took a billy club and thought it was just because that's what the early activation, and early activation means anytime before 18, so that could be 16, 17. But I'm talking about how it can still impact someone in Minnesota, a case, 7-year-old client, and my youngest, 9-year-old client.
Mm.
They can say, but they're bad and they get in trouble and they're just kids. Absolutely, absolutely.
Right.
But there's a difference between the early activation and those behaviors and those who have not. And I don't. Well, let me back up because then that implies that the people who are watching these shows now are damaging the kids. Let me, and it's just now starting. Let me go back generations. So the dad who left the Playboy magazine or the Hustler magazine, so the kid got a hold of the magazine. That's early activation. Back in the day, for those who, if you go back that far, trying to look through the squiggly lines of the cable, you see a boob, you know. So early activation. If you walked in on your parents by accident, you know, like you couldn't give it words, like that's early activation. Meaning it's like putting in a light box and putting the light bulb in, but you don't screw it all the way in. So you put in the box and the light bulb later, but now it's there. Whereas before they wouldn't have the box yet, or they wouldn't have the light bulb.
Right.
So just kind of an analogy. All right. So
Mm-hmm.
that being
Mm-hmm.
said, you pass on this chemical that's going to impact the baby unborn and impact the baby's DNA and their development medically and or mental health wise to where they end up behaving in such a way that's impact because of this chemical that was the shifted things for them. And then a lot of
Right.
times they live a life that leads to them having more problems. I mean, more is a stretch. They end up having problems that the kid who doesn't have this, they end up having more problems and become they engage in more ACEs. They engage in more adverse experiences. So if you come out developmentally disabled,
Mm.
what's the teasing rate for the people who have, what they said, that kind of look, the flat face? If you're born with alcohol, uh,
Yeah. Fetal alcohol syndrome.
alcohol syndrome, there's a certain look,
Mm.
right? Professionals see a certain look in the face, the eyes, da da da. If you have that,
Yeah.
what comes with that? So not
Mm-hmm.
only brain development stuff, but then society, what society you live in. If you come out with one leg, if you come out with 6 fingers versus 5,
Mm-hmm.
all those things, and the way you're treated. Now, when I know of people in India that would take their kid and drop them off because that kid has a certain illness, like, it's done. There are
Mm.
places in the world that would say because it's a girl,
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't bring value, because it. So so anyway, I just wanted to clarify that yes, a mother can have, any family can have generational, and then these uh, mini. Just the other day, and with the home ah, the mini the genes, anyway, the genes that go into the
Oh yeah.
baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I call it micro, but the mini whatever goes into the baby, and intergenerational trauma is what it's called, and the baby grows up on that based on those chemicals, and they can
Mm-hmm.
have trauma. All right, so I hope that makes sense. It still sounds confusing, and there's a great debate out there. There's research on it. Again, my research comes from uh, the late Dr. Patrick Carnes, Carnes, when he was training me as a sex uh, addiction therapist, and now his daughter has taken on the training. Stephanie Carnes,
Mm.
Carnes, Dr. Carnes. So a lot of my research comes from that, and then my trauma work. So that's where I get that answer from. I'm open to debate about it, but again, I won't
Mm-hmm.
debate theory. I'll just debate the outcome. Like either way, the outcome. All right.
Can I ask you
Yes.
about, because some people even talk about um, addiction,
Hmm.
like that's like if their parent was addicted to something, then
Yep.
they are already, how do people say it, like they have that
The
personality
gene,
or
like yeah,
something.
they have that addictive personality.
Yeah.
Now again, you
Can you
can't
speak on that a
pass
little
on
bit?
person. You don't pass on personality. However, in the last trimester
Mm.
and the first few years after the baby's born, last trimester and the first few years that the baby's born, babies do adapt and learn the personality and
Oh yeah,
characteristics of their mother.
for
And
sure.
so they develop the personality and characteristics of the mother. But with substances, so not only do you go back generations, but I'm talking about you go way, way back, because even heroin was used for medical purposes, surgeries. So now we're talking about passing bloodlines. Okay, so this is not even someone who was like, oh, it was an addict. So like it's in their DNA. And these doctors, depending who your doctor is, are they really informing you? Are they really informing? Not only is the job to treat you, but it's also to educate you and inform you. And how much are we being informed about what we're putting in our bodies or what we already have in our bodies? There's some doctors that actually you can take they take your blood and they'll tell you all kind of stuff. What's the best diet for you? What's the best this? They have that
Mm-hmm.
chemical. So if you're into that stuff, there are doctors
Yeah.
that can tell you what's in your blood. So with
Yeah.
addiction, so remember the same thing. I've taken in something that's impacted my ability to how I function, how I operate, how I socialize, and my coping strategy. So addiction, you can have. I know my bloodstream.
Mm-hmm.
If I take one sip of too much of anything, one puff of
Mm-hmm.
too much of anything, ah, so I just named the drugs. The pizza. Oh, got to name the ingredients.
Mm,
But you might as well just call it a drug.
right.
So I'm addicted to the pizza, an emotional eater. You see the commercial for 79 cents a day in the arms of the angel.
Oh yeah, that gets me. Yeah, yeah.
Mm. So emotional, that's another whole nervous system thing. The food, the chemicals in the food that I eat, if it's not natural herbs and berries and green, the chemicals in the processed food that I eat, on top of my nervous system, on top of this, on top of that, cortisol, the stress, the da 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 da. It's more than just
Mhm.
getting on a diet. Like, oh, I'm done with the pizza, fooey. It's a whole process. So then, if
Right,
I produce kids, the chemicals in me is getting passed on,
right,
right, in the DNA. So I don't pass on an addictive personality, but the chemicals that make up their DNA and all the way they're going to function in the world
right,
pre-exposed to, right, and this is how they may respond to certain situations. Then you add in the environment, nature versus nurture. So you add in the
right.
environment. They are raised in the, because you know you can have a set of twins, and then what,
I'm a
after
twin.
this, oh, you're twin,
Yeah, I'm an
identical.
identity. Yep.
Ah, please forgive me. We were just talking about the set of twins, the famous ones. They were on the TV show back as little kids.
Oh, Mary
Um,
Kate and Ashley.
Not them, not them. The other one. Like, I think they're around the same age because Mary Kay and those guys are in their 40s, 50s, 40s, right? 30s.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
All right. So the other ones are anyway the sisters. I can't think of the name,
Soul
but one was
Sisters?
born. Nope, they're
No.
light skinned, but they're black. But they were born
Oh,
like
Tia and Tamara.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you, Tia and
Oh
Tamara. And
yeah.
if you guys,
Oh yeah.
Tia and Tamara, if you're listening, I'm sorry I butchered your name. So,
Yeah.
but
Tia
yeah, so
always.
they're
I
born
always.
like
Tia
minutes
has the
apart.
mole. I
Minutes.
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, minutes apart.
Oh,
But check out.
love our sisters.
Yes, from sister, sister. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
But check this out, just minutes apart. But did you know there's a thing called sibling rivalry?
Oh
Sibling
yeah.
rivalry. So
Mhm.
even though you were born minutes before me,
Mhm.
psychologically, there's this belief now that I'm developing. So again, chemical or bio, but then there's the environment, bio, but then the environment. Mix that two together. I'm constantly think about we're constantly chasing middle child syndrome. Middle child syndrome gets the squeeze play. They don't feel like they're part of it.
That's
Now, if I
actually
had a
really interesting
sporting
stuff.
Yes, if I had a sporting team, I would actually hire a middle child because they're the ones who move to Alaska and get away from the family to prove that they can do. They always want to prove something. So I would
Yeah,
hire a
very
middle kid.
mellow.
Yeah, a baby, the end of the family. So think about it. You have if in a traditional home with two parents, so you have mama telling you what to do, papa telling you what to do, the elders telling you what to do, the next person telling you what to do, everyone's telling you what to do, what to do, what to do, what to do, what to do. You can't wait to finally do something on your own,
Right.
taking the most risk because you've always been coddled, brat because you've always been taken care of, the baby of the family, blah, 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 blah. So each one of the roles are significant. But if, again, it's not so much what role you have, is what you do with it. What you do with it. So the guys I deal with in the jail system, the ages 20 to 25 black males, highest deletion rate of males, black 20 to 25, overall the highest deletion rate, Caucasian males.
Mhm.
But that particular age group, and more and more lately, so more and more statistics are coming out that that particular age group of certain males who
Mm.
were super close to their mothers,
Mm.
super close. Now, there's always a mom out there that's going to say, "Oh, you think if the fathers would, if the fathers would." But if you listen to me long enough, you would always know that I've always said the men, the women have always. So if you take the Eve story,
Right.
she was still believing that it was safe to bite.
Right.
If you go with the Eve story, and I remember I'm not a master at that story, so I'm just if you go with that story, she believed, and then Mr. Nothing to do. Mr. Nothing to Do didn't stop me. Mr. Nothing to Do didn't stop me. So if you go with who's the furthest back, there's still argument to say that this trusting woman of this man who failed her. And then of course there's the reverse. Well, no, your dumb was you. So there's always still the attack back and forth. I don't care who was at fault, but there's an argument that she can say you were supposed to lead and you didn't protect me. And if you follow that forward, there's still the argument that a woman has to say you didn't protect me. And you can go from the foolery of my inadequacies and my self-hatred mixed with your low self-worth and low self-esteem. We just have the worst combination ever. And it's toxic. Well, oh, is that fun? You want to talk about fun? Date a borderline, right? It's just fun at first. But that's just trauma bonding. Trauma bonding. And I need to speed up because I wanted to open up the channels, and I know some people came here tonight for that. So the trauma bonding. Now, again, I'm not going to debate who's first, but the foolery of you didn't protect me all the way to the I'm tired of being second. So woman is less than. Now, I heard this joke. It's not my joke. It's not my original joke. But why there's a woo in front of the word man, I don't know. And I thought about it. The closest I can get to it is that God, after creating, saw her body and said, woo, man, I don't know.
I cannot.
I don't know. But that's not my, but I think it's funny. But the point is, so if I'm second, if I'm less than, a woman didn't have a voice, a woman couldn't vote, a woman couldn't. And our mamas wanted to stay home. Our big mamas, all races, our natives, they first of all ran the house. Women natives used to be the chiefs, okay? And I don't have all the right terms, but the women used to lead and the men were hunter-gatherers. The men would leave for months at a time to go get food, and they did not come home without that buffalo. They would not come home. But that was honorable. I'm not talking about going fucking around on the streets. I'm talking about it was honorable that he was coming back to feed, walking in snow, climbing mountains. There wasn't no just get out there and get on your bike and scooter and go. They would leave Little House on the Prairie. They leave their homes. That was honorable in the South, from picking cotton, and was even before them, but just the plantations and the work. And then, so you say, well, the woman stay in the house, she's my maid, she's my whatever. But for the master, that was still a less than. So women have always, even his wife, less than. And then even take away the race. Because if you go all the way back, whichever model you follow, the monkey, the fish, or Adam and Eve, the woman, no matter what ethnicity she is, has always been considered secondary. Do what I say. Follow and obey and cherish. So, but it was with honor to do so. And really, how secondary are you? Because we trust each other. You raise the children. Men, in Minnesota, actually nationwide, men are not historically nurses and teachers.
Right.
Okay, these roles that involve nurturing and caring and blah, 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 historically have been the woman, and I trust you with the kids.
Right.
But at some point, there was a message that said, I'm not going to be sitting down for nothing, and I'm not going to be secondary to anything. You got me messed up, and I'm sick of this shit. And then boom. And then all women say, yeah, we're part of it. We're part of it. We're part of it. And then if you think in the last few years about how many of the movements have kicked in. So all these movements about, I remember back 30 years ago when you did this to me, and that wasn't right. And now in this industry is so we say we want inclusion, but yet this entire company is all women ran. Inclusion, all women. So So the
Oh, not
message was
that
one
type.
thing. Yeah, the message was one thing, but the actual what happened was another. Now, all that to say, and where we're going to
Right.
be going in the next couple of shows, is how all that messaging has impacted us. On top of that, there's some things that when you look at me, I mean, and I'm just brown enough, but when you look at me, you know I'm a black man from the second you lay eyes on me. What comes with that? The second you lay eyes on me, what comes with that? Just that messaging alone about me being a black man. So
Hmm.
when Dr. Nakumbe's out there, and I'm dropping profound comments, and other races are listening to me going, "Damn, thank you." And then my own race of people who says, what this guy said to me the other day, self-proclaimed expert.
Hmm.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm self-proclaimed. You didn't give it to me, did you?
Right.
So yeah, but it's interesting how we can find other people to push that agenda. Like, so wait a second. You have a doctor's degree in psychology. You have this other one day, one night, Saturday was not so all right, but you have that degree, and that's not worth the paper it's written on, but you have it, and you had to
Right.
pay for. You had to pay for it. Like student education department still you made you pay, and I found out I couldn't get licensed with it. And then
Right.
masters, uh, marriage and family therapy, substance addiction counseling, masters. I mean, you have all this, and then the licenses. And I'm not one. You can check all these shows I'm on. I don't go in throwing my stature. I don't go in throwing around my education. 20 years since 1988, being interviewed by Dr. C. Ever Coop, working with Dr. Ben Vereen, working with on movements like advocacy programs, domestic abuse project with Sasha Cotton, um, Kimberly Elise, the actress working on mental health initiatives, secondhand smoke video. I mean, so when someone says to me, "Oh, you're self-proclaimed," you can say, "Hey, if that's what they call it." And then here's the kicker: behind the scenes, that's what people don't understand. Behind the scenes, do people see you? Do people really understand who you are and the trials that you've had to gone through and that you've gone through? If you lay down all my stats, I should be easily charging $1,000 an hour or $500 an hour, easily, easily, easily. But when you're a board certified uh, self
I
deletion,
know. Yeah,
yeah,
you don't even know where to start, but
self
also to be
deletion,
safe on the
yeah,
YouTube.
right, self deletion interventionist. So meaning if someone's on the bridge and driving by, I can actually get out and legally say, "Oh, wait a second, before you do that, you have any money on you?"
Right.
You know, whatever. Um, but then when you lose a kid, okay, when you lose a 10-year-old,
Hmm.
it changes things. It changes things. People don't understand the significance of what would sit a person down. The significance of what would sit a person down. You know, I can have all the degrees. What the preacher said, you can have more degrees than a thermometer and still be an idiot. I can have all the degrees and still be sat down because if I have all this stuff, it's supposed to work. It's
Hmm.
supposed to work. But then I've always said, and I don't shy away from it. I take ownership. I don't have all this because I was out there. Yeah, I want more. I was out
Right.
there because I believed I was never enough. And when I go into environments and they see, I don't even have to speak. They can see I'm black and what comes with that, and the way I believed and what I felt, and that inadequacy that was in me. It was never enough. Man, once I get this degree, it wasn't enough. Once I get this license, people, it wasn't enough. To have a rep sheet long of credentials, and certifications, and degrees, and years of experience, major corporations, hospitals, private practice, and then someone says, "Who has none of that? None of that." I mean, they have specialties in their own way. That they
Right.
possibly can get hit in the back of the head with a baseball bat and just turn around and be like, "Ouch, that didn't hurt," and still beat up the person. I get hit in the back of the head, I'm getting knocked out.
Right.
But when you can't even match someone's stuff and then have the nerve, because we're into that cancel culture. We're into that competitive about me, break you down, break you down, break you down, break you down. If I don't like something you did, to shame you. And they say, oh, bring back shame, bring back shame. And I do believe shame, a person persuaded, until the pain of the consequences outweighs the joy of the behavior, we don't change. So there is an amount of shame, and there is a significant amount of shame and consequences that will help motivate you. And at the same
Right.
time, there's positive influence for change too. But
Right.
if people go right back into their situation, so you give them the consequence, but they go right back into their situation. We get a divorce, but then we got right back together. Went to jail, but then went right back into the community. Then how much are we really changing? And how long are we sustaining that change? And we learn to flip the script. Then we get in relationships and we flip the script. I promise you one thing, this kind of rosary, Coach K, man, you listen, you'll be the happiest, you'll be the happiest. I'm in Minnesota, so there's a lot of interracial dating. I can be like, oh, Coach K, man, uh, the stereotypes, right? White girl,
Right.
this and that, black and white, interracial dating, da da da. But I'm sitting there looking at you at a restaurant and just asking myself, huh, you went to the white girl. Because I heard the other day someone say, oh, brother. And when they say brother, and then they look at you like, oh, right? But I'm not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So then if I'm not healthy, then I'm getting into stuff like, Coach K, you really love me? Prove you really love me. Prove you really love me. What do I have to
Right.
do? And if I have self-hatred and you have low self-worth, what do I have to do to prove? Well, when my boy comes over, what do you want
Right.
me to do? When my boy comes over. Anyway, we're going to be talking about building. I'm open. Coach K, if it's okay, we're open the lines for those who want to join this part of the conversation
Mm-hmm.
where we're just talking about what it is to want to build. And that build can be whatever you want. Are we talking about losing weight? Are we talking about part of the community? Are we talking about making change? I am going to ask that whatever we talk about, though, is not only for you, is not only for us. We have to think about 2 to 3 generations forward. You're wanting to lose weight, so what? I could be healthy and be on the beach next month. And be on the beach to do what? To do what? I mean, that's cool for you. But what's stopping you from moving forward also impacts your community from moving forward. It impacts the world moving forward. So it's not just about you. And I want to break down those mental blocks that get in the way. I want to help kind of clear up some of the foolery and bullshit, the stories that we've locked onto that serve no purpose. That serve no purpose.
Right.
Those coping strategies that you've held on forever, but they no longer serve you. And those that mental paralyzation. Coach, just the last little thing. I promise you, until you experience it, it's nothing like it. So when my mom would bust that door open, boom, at 2 a.m. and scare me to death, and that time
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the bathroom taking a shower and she, boom, bust open the door, and I literally, when they say scare the shit out of you, boom. And when you had those type of experiences, all the way to the calm, or not abusive, but calmer, like you ran out, but it was too late because they already left, and you think that they left forever. Or when your
Right.
parent thinks it's funny because you're at the store, but when you go in the store, you go play with the toys, and they say, one day I'm gonna get your ass. And so they leave, as in like,
Mm-hmm.
see you, but they don't understand the traumatic, like, whoa, don't, hey, you scared me, and how that locks on.
Right.
And they grow up, boom. But when I believed I found my mother for the first time, when I searched for her, I'm adopted, when I searched for her, and I believe I found her, she answered that phone. Hello?
Mm.
Hello?
Mm-hmm.
Click. Ah, ah. These rotary days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello? I had a girlfriend living down in Arizona. True story, down in Arizona. She swore up and down. I worked at a place for phlebotomists, but I was the person who did the take. I poke your finger, take your blood, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
So was dating one of the phlebotomists, and she said she just got out of a relationship. I'm like, cool, cool, cool. I didn't know she was still with the man. Went to the movies, brought her home. We're sitting in the parking lot. All of a sudden, boom, boom, boom on her window. Now I was heavy into martial arts. Those who know me will tell you, I thought I was the next Steven Seagal, just walking around with beads and shit, right? Just thinking I was uh, but felt like when I worked with the police units and stuff, I was proud. I didn't feel like I had to ever pull my gun because I was so counting beads. So they were dudes banging on the window, boom, 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 boom. Get out! I'm like, oh, why did you still with him? Oh, he's crazy. Here I am. I get out the car. Hey man, you're not going. He turned to his car, leaned over, jumped, pulled back up, and I saw something shiny in his hand. My
Mm.
entire body said, "Bzzz." He dragged her out the car, beat her in front of me. I'm like a wax museum doll, and he finished whacking her around, looked me up and down like, what the hell's wrong with you? Got in his car and drove away. And the second I heard the car, oh, and then she came and slapped me. You're a punk. But I was frozen. So people don't understand the
Oh my
significance of
gosh.
the power of words or the power of things that they say or do. I could have if I wasn't healthier. When someone said the other night, "You're a fake, you're a wannabe," it's like, but I'm so much healthier and proud to be
Right.
like, sounds good if you say so. Nothing to
Right.
prove. All right, that was a
Right.
long rant. It's 8:33 on my clock. Whatever time people have is 33. We'll go until about 55. If we have people coming up, CBN, do we have anyone coming up to join the conversation?
Yeah, I think, and while we wait, I think this is going to be such, and the following shows are going to be so good because it's not only what that message is that is
Mm-hmm.
holding them back from change, but I also think the story in and of itself that they don't even know it's a story, or
Mm-hmm.
that it's something they were told, or something that they can look at and do something with.
Mm-hmm.
I almost think that's even a,
Right.
a huge component, because just listening to people, and I don't judge them. I have compassion and understanding. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's still ones that I got to break through, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like, wow, you have this weight on you that you don't
Mm-hmm.
even realize you can take off sometimes. I mean, depending on what it is, obviously it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
work, but it's like, that's optional,
Right.
right?
But it's optional. But when was I given that memo?
Right.
If a
I'm here
boy
to
is
tell you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if
Right,
I'm
but they
taught not to
weren't.
cry, you don't become emotional, you don't cry, you can't be soft, you can't be weak. But when did I get the memo that one day I might see my parent fragile? So this dad who's just raw and now he can barely open a bottle of ketchup. When did I get the memo on how to deal with that? And I've heard Mr. and Mrs. She said also talk about those we don't get those lessons on how do we deal with that. First time someone that we actually love, and we see them in the hospital. I mean, even with a kid, right? You ever have a kid who has asthma or whatever, and you see them in the hospital, like, I'm responsible. I'm like, whoa, we don't get those memos. We don't get those
Right.
memos on what it's like to let go of some of these things that are really like has a grip on us. You say, well, you don't have to. Bullshit. I have no. Well, what proof do you have that you have to? How many? What proof do you have? Right. I don't know how many times you ask your clients, and what's the worst to happen if you didn't subscribe to that? Like this week, I want you to say no for once, see what happens. I'm not talking about dangerous situations. I'm talking about just being able to pick another option. But the scary part about that, and I don't know if your clients tell you this, Coach K, I hear what you're saying, but then I go right back into it. Tell yourself positive affirmations. And I look in the mirror, damn, dude, you're sexy. But then I go into a community that I constantly hear ugly, or I constantly compare myself on my own. I don't have to hear it. I do my own
Right.
comparison. Wow, look at him. Uh, 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 somebody told me I look like Miami Heat, Dwayne Wade. When I go across season, no, you look like Dwayne Wade. I'm like, there's nothing about me that look like Dwayne or Wade. And then who's the other guy? Hustle and Flow. Not the main rapper in there. His DJ or whatever. Anderson. Big Mama's House. Some people tell me I look like
I haven't seen like any movies, so I'm just
Blackish.
gonna warn you.
Yeah. Same way,
Oh, I
isn't
know
it somebody Anderson? Uh,
that.
anyway, so but the point is
Anthony.
Anthony, yes, but I hold on to that messaging of so I take what you say, dang, coach, it was a good session. Thank you. You're right. I have options, but when I'm hit with bam, and then are there cultural differences? Are there ethnic differences? Are there other things that play a role that also still have an option? There's nothing I could do about being a black man, but there's a ton of things I could do with that messaging that I take in and the understanding. The understanding. There's some places I go in Wisconsin. Hmm, I'm not getting out of my car now. No. But at the same time, who says I can't get out the car? I mean, if I want to live to tell about it, that's a different story. But who says I already have that message in my head, so I play it safe? Okay. But if it's stopping me from getting gas, and I have to stop it, I say, oh, I don't know of this neighborhood. But if it's about survival, I can talk to you in the session and you're like, well, why didn't you make? I mean, what choice and why did you subscribe to that? You're right. You're right. When I get to that Wisconsin place and then get some gas and I walk out chest puffed up, well, yeah, I have an option. It just takes one adverse reaction for me to go right back to my belief of safety. So a lot
Right.
of people they default to what's safe,
Right.
right? So then it's not just teaching them that they have options, but then how to be safe about their options. Which I know when we talked before about your teenagers, when the parents like blah blah blah, or helicopter parents and stuff, and the kids don't feel safe. I know you've talked about like I understand that's what your parents are going through, but how much are you letting that impact who you are and the decisions you make?
Right. And how is that hindering your growth and even the ability to build confidence or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes it's just getting over that hump,
Yeah.
over that initial. I mean, and I feel it too. It's that, yeah, it's that fear of rejection and all the rest. But yeah,
Mm-hmm. So we have I see Mandra's in the house. Welcome, Lady Navo. I don't know if I even said hello, Lady Navoa,
no,
or maybe you did.
hey,
Good to
no,
see you.
I haven't gotten in the chat. No,
Okay.
but hello, Lady
Information Man,
Nicole.
hello to you. Salute to you, Information
Yeah.
Man. And I want to apologize to Information Man if you hear this. The experience, uh, what when you were talking yesterday,
What show?
today, what's today, Thursday? Yeah,
Yeah.
yesterday. The experience that you went through, the confusion. So I appreciated the information you were sharing and the time consumed, but I think there was some confusion about the extension to the time. So I thank you and look forward to more of your messaging. I did talk to in the back room after we kind of all understood how it kind of all played out and the desire to have everyone heard and the desire to hear different perspectives and
Hmm.
not fear, but the concern like if one of us are talking too long. So definitely, but I wanted to extend an apology to the information man for
Okay.
that experience, as I extended an apology last night also to the other people impacted. So,
Okay. Did you want to answer Beautifully Animated's question while we see if anyone wants to join us about the what about Native Americans not being able to handle alcoholic beverages? When we were talking about
I'm not
the
understanding that
balance of
question. What about them not being able to handle? Because of the DNA. I mean, because again, we're talking about is that what we're talking about?
that, yeah, that she asked that when we were talking about that earlier, like the trauma, we were talking about the pregnancy and like and the addiction. Some
Mm-hmm.
people say they inherited that
Yeah.
or whatever.
Well, but a pack of Twinkies would impact me differently than they might you, Coach K, or someone else. And so, same thing, certain chemicals in the body, so alcohol and certain things impair us differently
Hmm.
based on our DNA. So now,
Yeah.
but if you're celebrated with cash, that's one thing. If you're celebrated with chemical, that's another. And not only celebrated, but uh, consumed, tricked, forced, convinced, uh, and then if we're talking about like uh, people who are spiritual and people who not just kind of talk the psychological stuff like psychology stuff, but actually talking to like the universe and, and gods and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And you impair the thinking, you impair the thought process. And the same as people who like doing shrooms and stuff. And like you take a trip, like you take a mental trip. So a lot of times there are people who didn't even see the consequences. They found the joy. They found the joy in the high or the
Hmm.
drunkenness. So the joy in the trip, the actual trip is kind of like whoa. But we're talking about people who were smoking tobacco already, like like traditional tobacco and smoking it and having traditional prayers and ceremonies and being able to still enjoy a substance that's earthly and still be themselves, not be so impaired, and still feel a certain thing and calm the spirits. And you take now this other substance, for like, well, okay, and we used it responsibly at one point, but to have it now is almost like inviting. It's like almost like a guy inviting, or females do it too, but inviting someone to a party and purposely getting them impaired and
Hmm.
taking advantage of it. And not everyone had that experience. Not every single person was like tricked because they really believed like it was an honorable exchange. They really believed that what the exchange was going to be beneficial. I really is almost, and I'm not comparing their experiences, but it's almost like people being here on the YouTube streets that target on their back, the target on front and every angle. They believe they're advocating. They believe they're teaching you the skills to life. They're teaching you things that are about family and abundance and gratitude and thanks. And then I invite people to do their research about, even Thanksgiving. I don't need to get into it here, but do your research about even what that meant, what does really mean, that holiday. So anyway, I'm not sure if I addressed the question how what you were looking for, but
What's and I don't know if we were talking about this another time too. That fascinates me is the I mean this kind of does go into this what we were talking about earlier in terms of DNA and genes and just epigenetics and how the mind plays a role in some of the different makeup, not makeup, because makeup I almost like attribute that to when we're born, like a certain, I'm not saying like that's gonna, your thoughts are gonna change your entire DNA, you know what I mean? Like,
hmm
but um the role the mind and the brain has, well, and you said the nervous system,
hmm
it is a little bit of that nature versus nurture, but it is fascinating. I don't know. What do you think? Just broadly on that.
But say it again. I mean, what was, I didn't hear the
So
question.
I'm trying not to like get into it too specifically, but in terms of the role that our consciousness has, well, and subconsciousness, um, on the way that just on our genes and on our behaviors and how our cells react to what we do, if that makes
hmm
sense.
Yeah, but I mean, so it makes sense. But again, when we talk about how it's impacted, I say we have to consider
Mm-hmm.
the multiple variables. Yeah, the multiple variables or the
Yeah.
variables, food intake, chemical intake, the
Oh, yeah.
environment, how we perceive things, our mental health, our physical health. Um, so the multiple variables. Now, some people, if you strip all these messages and didn't even mention any of these variables, they may be just fine. Like who was saying it the other day? Was it Mandra? No, it was the information man. He was asking about how do we know hot water is hot and cold is cold? So if you take away kind of these messages about, oh, woe is me, or when I went to India or the Philippines, or it was interesting because I believed that
Yeah.
who's the place with the lion spitting out the water starts with an S.
Oh,
See, I'm not always the brightest.
I don't want to say it because I'm
Not
not
so.
good.
Well, anyone know what's the place where the lions are spitting out the water? Is out there by Thailand, all that. What's up, Dragonfly?
I
Glad
think
you're here.
is it the
PM.
country name or is it a like a city or something?
Yeah,
I can't remember
not
what it
so.
was.
Starts with an S. But anyway, when I went out there, I believed that my big mighty dollar was going to get me all kind
I
of
think
fun.
Singapore. It's
Singapore.
one
Thank you.
side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Singapore. Man,
Okay.
please.
Okay.
Singapore was like New York, Chicago. I mean, Singapore. Man, I saw more Rolls Royces in one day in Singapore than I have like in 10 years of living in the States. And
Yeah. Yeah.
one day. So I'm like, don't let all the hype fool you. There's some places out there they're living just well, but again, the messages. I mean, I didn't get that message from Singapore, but that whole region out there, I believe, was just poor. Blah 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 blah. But
Right.
there are people out there who, if I mention to them the exact same problems, right? So, and I don't want to get again into the East versus West, but if you get into any of those countries going that way,
Right.
it's a totally different belief system, and I think the way your core belief system plays a role. Now, your
Right.
brain chemistry and the genes that you have, that stuff, the bio side of it. So that stuff we just can't
Mm-hmm.
change. We can't out people talking about. Oh, they just got to think it through. And you can't think through schizophrenia. I mean,
No, now
you can't.
that right.
Right. Now, there's some things, medicine, Western medicine, it might impact, but there's a side effect, and then there's another medicine for that side effect, another medicine for that side effect. So by the time
Mhm.
right, so it's like, ugh. But there are certain
Right.
things, biochemical or gene or DNA, that we can't control, but it's really about how do you manage it. And then what are you
Right.
intaking? How are you managing? What are you receiving? How are you globally nurture and all that? How are you
Right.
managing those things in your life?
Yay.
Hey.
Yeah. It also, what are you doing that's could
What's that?
potentially be making it worse?
Making it worse. But are the people telling us? Are people even asking the question? Again, I get a prescription that's great. The doctor says.
Well, you already know
The
what I'm
doctor.
going to say.
Oh, what's that? What's up? What's up?
Well, because and I've mentioned this before that I'm currently titrating slowly,
Mm-hmm.
and I did not know. I mean, I was an
Mm-hmm.
adult. I think I was 18 or 19 because I didn't have to
Right.
have anyone sign for it, but I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know the withdrawal that I was going to
Right.
have.
Informed of the benefits, right? But
Right.
not necessarily informed about how it would impact you. The getting off of it.
No, and they also, when talking about getting off of it,
Mm-hmm.
even their suggestions, which I don't fault, it just doesn't do me any good to like fault them. But at
Right.
the same time, telling me to just go down 10 milligrams
Mm-hmm.
over 2 weeks will be, and then another 10. And I'm like,
Right.
you gotta be out of your
Magically
mind.
delicious. Right. Right. Magically delicious. You'll be better.
You're out of your
Um,
mind. Currently,
yeah.
I'm going at a rate of 10%
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm.
which is gets confusing, but I'm just wait
Mm-hmm.
10%. And luckily there's people out there that have made spreadsheets that all you do is put it in. God bless them. And then
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
can figure out the weight of it, and then I can figure out the milligrams
Yeah.
that's in that weight. but I'm going down 10. Like I'm not even. I'm at 30. I've only gone down 10% over. I don't know. I'll have to look. But yeah, but no one told. Yeah, yeah. I could just go on all day about this. But
Right. I
luckily,
mean,
no. I haven't really noticed any withdrawals so far, from
mhm.
what I can tell. But yeah,
Good, good. And but I want to challenge.
yeah.
So you have one part of it that's not telling us, and then you have another part of it where we're not inquiring. So, hey,
Right.
what's up? What's up,
Yeah,
Wigs?
Miguel.
Wigs. All
Whoa.
right. Yeah, yeah,
And the cushion too.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm
Yes,
seeing
yes,
it right
yes,
now.
yes.
This is
We had
actually
the
comfortable. Like I didn't
yeah,
know. Like
I saw
yeah,
someone
yeah.
else wearing one of those, and I was like, "Oh, maybe it's an actual thing, and he's not just."
well, because
Like,
my game chair has a pillow right there. You know what I'm saying? So I
Oh
was
yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh
yeah.
yeah,
I might
Mr.
have to use this
Our
sometimes.
yeah, Mrs. Scam. Yes,
right.
yes. It was funny
um,
because we had a duplicate Corey yesterday. That was funny. That was fun. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
The other
I gotta check
What's
Corey.
that out.
up? What would you like to bring to the conversation? How's life? Talk to us.
It's pretty good. So I forgot to. Well, okay. Let me start off with because you started with Adam and Eve first. So when you
Yeah.
think about it, Adam, that was the first. That was the initial man being betrayed by his woman.
Hmm.
Like
Okay.
we've been through this
Yeah.
story over and over throughout our growth, right? And I'm like just
Hmm.
not clicking it. it's just it's
Right.
just not clicking that this girl betrayed her husband.
Yeah. But
And she
which
knew.
betrayal? Which betrayal? So yes. So, but I also offer
Right,
that she believed he didn't stop her. He didn't protect her.
right. Some people say that he should have been watching or over his wife or something like that.
Hmm.
But why do you have to babysit a grown person? That's the thing. You already know the rules.
God told them
That's
both, right?
that's part of the
That's what I'm saying.
debate, right? Because who are you to tell me what to do? And in the same breath, when I say, listen, you don't know better, or you're a woman, or you need to sit down and you need to listen. So, but then there's the debate. Why are you telling? So again, that's why I kind of shrink that gap and be like, both felt betrayal,
Yeah,
Right.
and then
yeah,
the
but
consequence was go be happy together.
I mean, right?
Yeah, and cursed
Go
us
get you
all, so
some.
God had to wipe us all out.
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, it's just crazy to me. You're with somebody you're supposed to be able to trust, and so to me, that may be the cause of the men's problem with women
Hmm.
and trusting
Feeling
them.
betrayed.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
that's.
Hmm.
I mean, that betrayal
Yes,
took us all out. Okay,
it
I
did,
know
but
we didn't sin at that point, right? Or
it
that
did
kind of like, but yeah,
right? I didn't do it.
right. Hey, Sir Hale's in the house. Good to see you. Good to see you. So,
yeah,
beautiful animated. So, question. So,
Mhm.
if I say, well, listen, I sincerely didn't understand the magnitude of the situation. I didn't protect you as the wife. I didn't
Yeah,
understand that you would be so hurt by this. But then, if if he's speaking to it and she launches off because she feel so, there's a certain self. I already feel like I'm already kicking my own ass from it. But then I
yeah,
project that on you. So as Eve or this woman who says, man, I messed up. Well, hold on. You can't. Why are you trying to? And if you, here we go. And if you, so I already felt, but instead of owning that, instead of starting with, to be like, oh, I'm a dummy and I'm messed up and I'm stupid, but owning the fact that there were certain steps that I took that took the whole process out of order. There were
yeah,
certain steps that I took that led to consequences. And one, I'm glad you brought it to my attention, pending how he does it, of course. But one, I'm glad you brought it to my attention. But
Yeah.
some people get so caught in their feelings and personalize and take it on as this attack. So at what point do men feel comfortable, or what's the big S word? Safe, to have these conversations? To our modern, and we're talking about that for Adam and Eve, our modern day world, we don't even feel safe to have these conversations. And if I say, listen, whew, I'm not trying to be traditional, but just stop. Because the more I explain, the more you're like, you're confusing me, and you're just trying to a bunch of foolery, and just I'm not. Listen, it's not for discussion. There are certain things as parents, certain things as supervisors and directors, and as the leaders, there are certain things that are non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And it's up to me to make sure that I still keep it safe. But there's certain things that are non-negotiable. I challenge couples to have that conversation about what your non-negotiables are. Now, some people will argue and say that's oppressive and that's oppressive and everyone has a choice and consent and choice. Absolutely. But when you start talking about permanency, when you start talking about long-term relationship, you start talking about marriage and commitment, I ask, how are you being committed to the commitment? How are
Yeah.
you being committed to the commitment itself? And what do you need to do to have it sustained? We both can't be on this and we both can't be that. You do your piece, I do my piece.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? That's just my argument. It doesn't mean it have to be written in stone. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I mean the thing is, if you first of all, you said you did like she could be like, oh, I didn't understand the magnitude of the consequences or whatever. You don't have to understand the consequences. Leave it alone. Is leave it alone. No, it's no.
Oh, that's like a sign that says wet paint don't touch.
Yeah, that means don't touch it.
Right,
It's simple. It's simple.
right.
Okay, let me tell you. So I had when I was working at one of my old jobs, whatever. There was this one bathroom that had like the handicap stall had
Hmm.
this like small square door, and it had a door in it with a I think it had a lock. No, no. I think the lock was broken, but it said "Do not open."
You
One of my
open it.
coworkers opened it.
Oh,
She's like, "Ah!" So, you remember that scary girl from The Ring?
oh, Samora.
Yeah.
It was a
Yeah.
picture. It was a picture of her that came out flying.
Yeah.
It was swinging.
That's crazy.
Interesting.
Wow.
She's up there. That scared the shit out of me. I was just like, well, that's what you get.
Get right.
What
Right.
was there a reason that it said do not touch, or were they just trying to test? I mean, interesting
It was a setup.
test, but
It was
oh,
a
Set up.
setup.
Scared the hell out of me.
you
Well,
know
you know the
what's
psychology
interesting?
behind. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Coach K.
I was gonna bring up real quick the study with the marshmallows and kids and delaying gratification. That's interesting. But is that what?
Yes.
Well, what were
Wait,
you
what
gonna
No,
was the
that's
say?
not what I was gonna
marshmallows?
say. But yes, I love that study. Are you familiar with Wigs? Are you familiar with the marshmallow study?
No.
Go ahead, Coach
So
K.
I don't know the
The
exact number,
uh,
but they gave kids
the graham crackers and the marshmallows on the sticks. Yes, yes, yes.
yeah, the one
Okay.
that I'm thinking of is the where they give these kids these marshmallows, and if I don't know if they're leaving or whatever, but if they decide to be patient and not eat them when they leave, they'll get another one. So they'll end up with more marshmallows than if they decide to eat them when the
Right.
researcher or whoever leaves. So it's about,
Okay.
get you
So
wait for that long-term reward, which is usually sweeter than if you gobble your marshmallow
it's
up. Well,
it's
now you're not
literally
getting
sweeter.
more.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Right.
It's like
Actually, yeah, the s'mores. Now, the version I know of that research, they're making s'mores.
Oh
okay.
yeah.
Uh, with the but and they're roasting them. but they're going around and giving. But then the thing is, the kids were with the impulsivity issues, instant gratification. I want what I
Yeah,
want when I want it, and gotta have it now.
yeah.
Gotta have it now. They never really got to make their s'mores because they quickly ate the marshmallows.
I
So
can
yeah,
see that. Oh, see
just from,
that, but that's a good one too
Oh,
because
mhm.
obviously, in my opinion, a s'more is so much better than just a marshmallow.
Right. It was the same
That
study, but the creative version that was done was with the s'more.
that's so I love this. Just hearing about this, it's so interesting. But
Yeah.
anyway, what were you gonna share though? Sorry,
Oh yes. What was I gonna say? What did Beautiful Animated say?
she
What
was
did?
talking about the Samora coming out of the do not touch thing.
Oh yes, yes, yes. All right.
right.
So
That's so
all right. So
creepy.
back to the marshmallows really quick, and then I remember now.
Okay.
Uh, the other part of that study were watching the kids who had attitudes because they believed they should get another marshmallow, and the kid next to them should
Ooh.
share their marshmallow. So they also talked about
Ooh.
yes, the practice of what's owed to me,
Ooh.
Wow.
expectations. Yes, it was deep. All right,
Ooh, that's
so
so interesting. Okay, go
yes,
on.
so what I was going to say is the psychology behind the word "don't." It not
Oh.
only tells me I should not, but it tells me I can't. I can't. And it taps
Mm.
into my belief that I'm unable to. I'm unable to, which goes against a lot of the messaging of you're going to be a king. You're going to be a ballerina. You are the wisest. You are the best. Aren't we supposed to motivate and encourage our kids, right? But
Right.
the simple sign of don't touch psychologically implies I'm unable to, I'm restricted, taps into some of my inadequacies. And then the
Mm.
automatic opposite of that, of you are unable to, you're not allowed, is why can't I? What do you mean?
Well, I'm a two.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
That and that's so interesting too. Even just like the way we talk to ourselves, I'll catch my my grandma. She needs to start moving. I mean, she's been done with all. She's been dealing with a lot of health issues, but it's because of
Mhm.
her lack of movement and then her energy and her muscle, whatever. And she says,
Mm-hmm.
"Well, I have to make myself," and I'm like, do you feel pretty fueled when you say, well, I have to make myself? And I'm like,
Mhm.
what about I want to do this? She
Yes.
doesn't have to do that.
Huge
But
difference.
but it is. I said
Yeah.
there's a different charge to it, or even like, there's a sleep medication that I'm familiar with, and some people they get the munchies. And I've experienced this. You get the munchies when you take this medication. Instead of telling yourself, don't go to the kitchen, don't go to the kitchen, instead say, stay in bed.
Does
I'm
it have
staying
Yeah.
in bed.
herbs?
It
Huh?
actually doesn't, but it
Yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah.
doesn't.
Right, right. Yeah,
Yeah, it actually does not,
yeah,
but I know what you're talking about.
yeah,
But yeah, which some even say that affects your sleep. I don't even know,
yeah.
but yeah,
The
it's
munchies. Yeah, good one.
okay. I know what you're
Well,
talking about. But yeah,
yeah, Coach K, that method is such a wonderful. It helps. There are many people who don't know about it, or they do, but they don't practice it. When it comes to even addiction, that I have to be clean for 30 days. I
Yeah.
have to not subscribe to. I have to. In fact, I was just joking the other day. I jumped on one of the shows. I'm like, man, this stuff's like crack, man. I can't stay away from these damn YouTubes now. Like I got to jump in, but instead
so
of
true.
forcing that, I have to make sure I don't get on there tonight. But what if I'm just okay with? I'm okay with if I don't get on tonight, and it's not a force, not
Yeah,
a have to. It's tonight. I
yeah.
want to do this instead. I don't have to
Hmm.
make a 30-day recovery plan. I want to
Right.
just not drink instead of have to. I have to be able to go to a party and have fun. Well, who says you can't have fun? Why do you have to? How about you just want to go to a party and see what happens?
Oh my
Right.
goodness. That reminds me of me and my sis. Like we used to we used to play this game that you could either do on computer or with the PlayStation. It was like EverQuest and then EverQuest 2, whatever. Um I think it was my sister. We when we would get together to play these games and stuff like that, we would be drinking, right? And then and then we were always playing it just more often. So we were drinking more often. It's just like I was just like,
Mm,
hold up,
and you
because it just
associate it
became
with it.
habit, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
you associate it with it. Like your body gets used to reaching for that because you're doing that.
Right.
right. So we had to I think she brought it to my attention, whatever. And it was like, well, okay, we'll just stop. And I'm the type of person that I have to put things out of, like, put them away, out of sight, of out of mind, whatever. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's not an addiction, but it's still a problem, you know.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
I
you really do have to pay attention to certain things when you're doing certain things, especially when it comes to drinking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It comes out second. It literally is second nature. That repetition is
yeah,
for better, for worse. Like I love
Right.
this another study about the taxi drivers in what Europe or something. Just
Mm-hmm.
hmm
the connections that they've created from that constant repetition of knowing where to go and stuff is so strong. It's so interesting. The
Mm-hmm.
brain
Yeah.
is fascinating.
Yeah.
But yeah.
None of you ever quit a job
yeah.
and then you don't go there anymore, but you the next day like you go that route, but you don't go there anymore.
Yep.
All right,
Yep.
listen.
Ah, right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Listen, I see Sir Hales in the house, and I'm not sure how much of you caught earlier of the show when I was talking about people who are advocates and they have this target, and when they stand up, they're the largest target in the room, and how people can take their messages, even though we're all facing this way. So right now it would be Coach K, Wiggs, also known as Beautiful Animated, and then those in the chat, right? We're all facing this way, and we all have a common cause. But then there's the one who stands up, who's advocating, who's saying, we can have better, we can do better, we should be better. And then there's that one that's going to point, because again, you're the largest target in the room. So the Sir Hales, the Seds family, the Harris tribe, and all the people that you guys know, and Beautiful Animated that you know, the Lady Navoas, all these advocates who fight, who stand up, who risk. I want you to understand that piece. The people who do that standing, they do it at a risk. Now, part of it is the greater good, which is the next generation, my kids, the next generation, the generation after that, the people who can't speak, speaking for the people who can't speak,
hmm
walking for the people who can't walk, uh, doing for the people who can't do. That comes with the risk. So the spears, they hit first the ones who are standing. And when we see those leaders, when we see those people taking attempts and they're taking the hit, many people actually try and dodge and get out the way. But I want us to rethink that about how do we say, let me help you. You have this spear in your back. You have this spear in your shoulder. You have this spear in your thigh. What can I do to offer the support? Before I take the message as, oh, you think all of us are so bad. And you think about first, what is being said? What is being said? And how is that impacting me? How much of this is my issue before we dump it on someone else? I know sometimes I listen to Sir Hale and a few others who I'm like, no, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. But I get it caught into my clinical perspective. And
Yeah.
everything is not clinical. Everything is not clinical. So how then do we align? Like, how do we join forces? How do we say, from a religious perspective? So when I went on to listen to Pastor Sheila and I heard her talk about trauma through, and I don't remember the chapter or the I have to look at it again. But when I was like, Coach Sheila, I mean Pastor Sheila, I'm like, I mean, because I was saying 2 weeks previous to that, oh yeah, there isn't the prayer. I was saying to boss, um, security boss.
Oh, security.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, you can say all the prayers you want. I've not seen a person yet in the jails or with schizophrenia. I've not seen a prayer yet, kind of like instantly. But when I
hmm
heard Pastor Sheila talk, I'm like, oh. But I say, then how do we come together? You have your strength, I have my strength. Instead of worrying about it takes strength for a mama to do so and so and what the daddy should be doing, what any parent should be doing, what any
hmm
parent should be doing. Take that strength to look at how can I take the message. If it applies to me, it applies. If it does not, It does not. What Coach K talks about, options, knowing your options, knowing your options, and what Beautiful Animated talks about. Sometimes you just don't deal with stupid people. Now I challenge that to say not everyone is stupid, but they make sometimes stupid decisions and do things stupidly, right? Beautiful Animated would be like, this is stupid people. But don't deal with the foolery if that's not what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted to give that shout out as we started the show with talking about that advocacy and how it starts to wear those people down. It starts to wear down when you're being attacked, when you're being ridiculed, when you're being put on like, I'm gonna prove you're a dummy or whatever. And these traditional messages of what I said, because I said it, leave it at that. And now you have an entire group of people saying, can I think for myself? And I do think for myself. So now I believe my way is correct because when I had a chance to learn the limited teaching style, it may have been protective, but the limited teaching style, I didn't get a chance. I feel like I didn't get a chance to be me.
Yeah.
So no matter how far you go back, and I still want to say we have to look at what are we projecting in the future, no matter how far back you go back to the 1800s to just last year. And again, I want to remind us in the last 5 years, what have we been focused on? The dance moves, the emotions, the hormones, the identity issues, and what are other cultures, let alone countries, focused on? How much are we going to continue to have these same conversations, eating up all the social media outlets, and those things are eating up our attention and our brain cells, and we're just focused on this stuff, and we're not even thinking for ourselves anymore. We're so concerned about when iPhone 900 comes out, and I'm already prepared and I'm ready to get in line to go do that. I'm ready for the next music thing to come out. I'm ready for the next ass wiggle on the screen. I'm ready for those things, but I'm not even conditioned. I'm not even properly conditioned to manage the stimuli that comes with it. So I watch the ass shake, and now I'm aroused, and I go out believing that you owe me something. I go out believing I have the right to touch it. I go out believing that you're just a piece of whatever that, and you. I go with these misconceptions, and I follow this junk. And I don't mean the quality stuff. I'm talking about the stuff that's really for entertainment, and then there's the stuff that is meant to distort, discourage, confuse. And if you're subscribing to that, you are becoming more and more lost. And how is that going to impact you and your family and our future? Please take that into consideration. And that's what these next 2 weeks will be talking about, how to break those mental blocks and how to actually build on whatever it is you plan on building. That's my final thought. I'll leave it to you two and whoever else wants to chime in.
I don't really have a final thought. Scam is in the back. Did you?
If he wants to come up, I said we were going to wrap up at 8:55. It's now 9:15.
Okay.
But if he wants to come, I mean, we have been inviting folks. If you want to come up, Scam, drop a line, drop a word or two, please do. Bring some dust. Boston Translations in the house. What's up? What's up? Good to see you. Scams in the house. What's up? Marcus Antonio. What's up, sir? Good to see you.
Hey.
Thank you for being here. And what's the good word? What would you like to bring to the show?
Hey, Skim.
Can y'all see me? I got a delay on my computer.
No, you're good.
We can hear you and see.
Yeah, my picture's still coming up on my computer. Issues. Traditions. The recipe for more trauma. The false solutions. The scam. The lie. Yeah, it's going to cause you some trauma if you go back to traditions. Because if you go back before the traditions, there was another tradition that didn't work. And you'll find that it was people telling people to do stuff because they could. It was never based on critical thinking, solving a problem, actual analysis. something in the interest of the better mind of the younger people. It never was that. It never will be. A few things that can happen with traditional thinking. You got to say there's 3 kids. Oldest kid, do this because I said so. Do it. But no. He thinks that's the way to do it. You beat him, smack him around a few times. He grows up. He's 28. He has 3 of his own kids. And he does the same thing. They got 3 different personalities. And it doesn't work. But he thinks it worked on him. But it doesn't work. It was a lie. So you got 3 screwed up kids.
Was it an intentional lie?
No. But grace is optional. So when one's out in the street, one's jumping off a cliff, they might give you some grace on the way down. I'm sorry.
Right.
No, it's not how this works. People have critical needs. People got needs. There's survival out here.
Yep.
But you didn't teach critical thinking, adaptability, individuality, being able to ask stuff like why, how does it work? What if this doesn't? Not being able to ask those questions makes you a robot. Robots can do nothing but make other robots. And you got 3 kids with 2 personalities, problem.
Right. Here's what I'd like to have you take into consideration. And I don't mean to interrupt, but I want you taking this into consideration. So not only am I asking, did they lie on purpose, but I also wonder, where did that come from? You can go as far back as you want, but at some point, somewhere I learned, not me personally, but somewhere I learned I must be respectful or else we could be killed. I learned I must bow down when I am speaking, or I could be KILLED. At some point, I learned, this is the way that it goes. At some point, I learned about survival, and then I was told. So at some point, the person before me was all about the survival, and what they told me, what they left in my lap was, this is how you must operate. And now I get to the point moving forward where I'm like, it doesn't matter, Dusto. It's what I said. Just stop talking back. Don't stop talking. So 1, I'm applying this whole respect message. 2, we don't have time for negotiations and ambiguity. Now we're messing around having this conversation, and then my own inability to manage my emotions. And see, I'm getting hyped up. And see, what you done did? Why you? And right. So then that person is now scarred, like, whoa, I'm the blame of everything, and now I'm subjugating for my next generation. So I just want to add, do we take those things also into consideration?
When somebody, how can I say it? You didn't beat the critical thinking out of somebody to where they don't know what consideration is. They don't have, and you ask for grace, they don't know what that is.
Right, but the first
You
part,
told them,
how did it happen to me? How did it happen to me? So I know about your part about what I did to them, and now when I'm going down, I'm asking for grace. But before that, is there grace for what happened before that?
Well, I get it, because what you're saying is their parents taught them that. In 1955, their dad and mom beat the tar out of them. Said, shut up, don't do nothing. They walked out to the neighbors beat them. They went up the street, the preacher beat them. But all of them in 1935, the same thing happened to them.
Yep. And then there was the year when I accidentally snuffed my kid because I was trying to get them to be quiet as we were escaping somewhere, and I accidentally snuffed them trying to get them to be quiet.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, the results are the results. Now there's a 24-year-old who either is a robot themselves, they're or they could be a victim, they're sabotaged, got no self-esteem, you beat that out of them, you beat their personality out of them, or you got a rebel. And it's usually overcorrection. This rebel don't hear no rules. They don't, they'll swing at a cop, they'll do cocaine, they'll do whatever they want to do. Everything is wrong. Now there's no reasoning. But that might be the 3 kids that's produced out of traditionalism.
Right.
Then you go sit with your elders. They're like, elders. I do what I want to do. The other one said, got his head down, won't even look the elders in the eye because he got no self-esteem. And the other one is telling everybody else, yeah, respect the elders. It's the right way to do it.
Right.
Keep multiplying this across a whole population, and what will you get? something like what you got right now.
Right.
They understand.
Interesting.
Let's go back to how it
Interesting.
moves. No, let's not. God, no.
All right. We have Sir Hale in the building. I don't have all the buttons to press. I don't have all those things to press. I can just make the sounds. What Scam just said.
Yeah, shout out to Sir Hill. Looking at his shirt.
Yeah.
Looking at his shirt, he's been promoted to.
So,
He's been
ladies
promoted
and
to
gentlemen, welcome to the building, Sir Hale. And if you want to,
not the manager at McDonald's. Looking at his shirt.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Good to see you, Dr. Nakumbe. Good to see you. Good to see you, Coach K. Good to see you, Beautiful Family that Speaks. And good to see the custodian that works at the McDonald's that I manage. Shout out to the chat. Good to see you.
Yes. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I came up here because I heard Dusto, and where there's a dust storm, I must come to make sense of the dust that we just heard.
Yeah.
So I'm an advocate for tradition. And I'll tell you, so Dusto was giving examples that to me aim toward confirmation bias, right? The worst of the worst stories to prove. So I think what we see today is a result of a lack of tradition. Now, I do have to, like, in all honesty, I've got to give respect to what Dusto said. I mean, if you do think about some of the culture that was transmitted, some of the toxic parts about that, where we didn't have the ability to express ourselves or have a thought, or, you had to, it was pretty much something was set in stone. Dusto makes a very valid point. But we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There were some things that I think were fundamental to society and to family, right? Like, eating together regularly and having regular times where we come together, building a foundation of strength and integrity, knowing that life is not all about your individualistic pursuits, but you represent something much larger than yourself. I think that some of those traditional values we need. And I think that some of the issues that Dusto brought up in terms of the young kids today are a result from that loss of value. And of course, that ties back into fathers ties back into, let's go to the 80s and 90s, drugs, which took place as a result of the changes in the 60s and 70s. And like you did, Dr. Nakumbe, you can trace a reason or chain back the further you go. So I just say that to say is that I don't think we should do away with tradition. I do think that we should modify it. And this is based off of the education available to us. So, like, I'll give you one thing. So back then, no one was going to therapy. That was a rich person's luxury, or you went if you were absolutely crazy. Well, so now we can take that tradition of not going, and now we can modify by going to a therapist like Dr. Nakumbe, who can help us to detangle some of this stuff in our heads. And now that becomes a new piece to the tradition we have, which creates a more healthier culture for us. You see what I'm saying? So tradition to me is good. It's fundamental. But I do have to give some credence to the dustiness that preceded from what Dusto orated moments ago, that there are some toxic parts, but tradition itself, I think, is a good thing if constructed correctly.
Yep. I love what you said.
Tradition for the sake of tradition. It's
Right.
the reasons of what those traditions, the outcomes that those traditions have on the family as a whole or an individual, but the greater reason behind the tradition and what it leads to.
Precisely.
Mhm.
And I'll
Sorry,
say this,
go ahead, Dr. Nakumbe. Oh, go ahead. Whoever.
and just one other example I just noticed, and this is studying different cultures, organizational behavior, just studying things where we get different data to look at how different people take a concept and apply it differently based off where they are. I noticed something like, different cultures, everybody's a police officer, or everybody's a politician, or everybody's a doctor. And from the American perspective, we look at it like, I don't want to be controlled. I want to have some autonomy over my career decisions, right? So you're like, absolutely, I want freedom. But then you start to, if you scale back and look at our autonomy, humans have a propensity for doing the minimum to survive. You see what I'm saying? So when I look at different cultures, so when I look at different cultures, I'm sitting here like, I would rather go all the way up and be pushed to become a doctor and have that education and experience, and then have the option to say, I want to do something different, than to never have been pushed. And now I'm struggling because I didn't have that foundation. So I think there's some trade-offs, and that trade-off, it can only be realized based off of the perspective you have, depending on the circumstance you're in. So for people who have to be a doctor, they can't imagine, they don't see it from the person who wasn't pushed to that greatness.
Right.
And then the
So,
person
if I see a
who wasn't
commercial,
pushed, so I think there's some benefits, but it depends on perspective.
Yeah, I got more pushback.
But if I see a commercial where you can have this Corvette or Lamborghini without completing high school and just do this fast track program, what incentive do you possibly have to be pushed to become these other things?
Yep.
So
tradition would say, a father that would say, you're not going to waste my money, and a mother that's waiting for you to be successful. So there goes tradition again. Dr. Nakumbe, as a person, I was taken out of school in the 3rd grade, right? So I have never been to middle school, high school. I've never been through that, right? I ended up getting a GED at 19 years old and associates and finishing up a business degree now. But I've been an avid, I'm an educated man. Right. I just happen to have had to work all of this time. So I'm in the computer sciences field. So I study. One of the things that I realize is that without that push, you will accumulate this over time, but being able to do it at a specific time, deadlines, because there's nobody behind you telling you to get this done now. So you're going to get it.
I feel that. I feel that right now. Yeah. I wish someone was telling me.
Precisely. So how many thousands of dollars in student loans are you going to waste because there's no push? This is where tradition comes in. Like now I'm educated. I'm certified in in cloud technology. Like I've got it. But I imagine, what if I had a push? If I've got the tenacity with having to get a GED and going back to school, and I didn't have any push, right? Being homeless, right? What would have happened if I came from a place where I had parents like, get up, go get it. You're not going to be able to play the video, right? What if I had that? And so you see what I'm saying? That's my perspective. Now I get the benefit of hearing Dusto's experience, somebody who did have that. And I think, to Dr. Nakumbe's point, this is how we're able to take perspectives, merge them, and then come up with something something greater.
I still got pushback.
What's that, sir?
I'm gonna say burn the traditions with a blowtorch.
All
Here's
of
the
them, every single one.
70-80%. I say burn the traditional mindset.
Could you just define that for the audience, just so we can all be on the same page? Like, when you say tradition or traditional mindset, like what types of things?
Because I said so, burn it.
And then do what though? Well, what's the replacement? Because my concern is, you said this in 2022, 2023, and then in 2024 you'll say, oh, it's traditions. But at what point, how do we move past that? Like, what's the alternative? What do we do now?
Alternative, positive reinforcement.
You say Tina Turner. No, alternative.
Huh?
What you said? Alternative? Yes, alternative.
Alternative. Yes. Planning, positive reinforcement, real leadership. More proper planning.
That's vague. What's real leadership? Me telling you what to do. That's real leadership.
Right. That's leadership at the lowest level. Level 1 is you're leading. Actually, that's level 0, leading by force. If you don't do this, you get paid. That's actually not even on a level. Level 1 is
real leadership.
Right. Baseline leadership is leading by position. Because I'm your father, you do this, which means if we took your position away, you can't lead. Level 5, the top level, is leading by influence, where people buy into and they believe in you, and you're able to speak actual things into existence. That's what CEOs, the most charismatic, the alphas, everything everybody wants, they're able to do so. And people follow them by choice.
And then there's Bud Light.
They're looking for guidance because they believe in you. You can transfer it and teach them how to believe in themselves. Or you can grab somebody, you're going to be a doctor. Because if you don't, what if you just beat the future NBA point guard, coach, teacher, nurse, used car salesman of the year? You just beat it out of him and force him into a doctor. As soon as he gets in the emergency room, he going to stab somebody to death. You just killed 20 people because somebody told you in your brain, doctor was something that you didn't even know what it was. But you heard him.
You're still speaking old ideology. What I'm saying is, we're already into the next kind of generational practices. We're already into the woke culture. So we already
Okay.
passed that tradition stuff. So when
We
you keep
almost-
talking about it, like, what do we do now? What do we do?
Okay, what do we do now? First, take an evaluation of who you are.
Wait,
Look at
hold
your-
on. Haven't we gone almost the complete other way too? If we look at culture, sorry
What do
to
you mean?
interrupt you, Dustin. Like we went from because I said so to you have a choice, even though you're 10.
Not exactly. That's what
That
that's what traditionalists keep saying, just to push back so they can force their tradition and keep doing what they want to do.
Oh,
Mhm.
Dustin,
Say,
I've got
well,
a quick
if I
question
don't
for you.
feel, huh?
If you guys don't mind, just good question. Do you believe in standards?
Where do you get the standards from?
Come on,
That's my
Dustin.
answer
No,
to the
but I'm saying
question.
Do you believe in
traditional
standards?
standards? No.
No. Just in general. Do you believe in standards? And let's just give it. So you have standards of how you do things and procedures at work, standard procedures, how government operates, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Do you believe in standards?
Yes.
Well, those are very closely knitted to what we think traditions are, right?
No.
They're very similar, right? So it's
disagree.
very important. It's very important to say, because if you're saying let's blow away tradition and let's do this instead, the only difference between what you're proposing in tradition is the length of time it's been practiced. The only
No.
difference.
The standards of tradition were a lie, and people
Okay.
found that out. For example, you
And
need to
now
be
what?
married. No, here's the
And
one.
now what? Because
When
you
you're
can't beat a
18
child now. You can't beat a child now. Your kid at 7 years old can say that they are a meow, that they can say that they feel a certain way, and they can go to CPS. Chicago schools wiped out they have all these blended bathrooms. So all that beat and don't have a choice stuff, you can't do that anymore these days. So yes, it happened. It impacted our generation, but now that stuff is. But we still have standards of operation. We still have non-negotiables, and we still have expectations. But right now, people are mixing and just kind of doing what they want to do. So I hear your plight, and I agree. Like, man, you're right. It did some damage, and part of what I'm talking about is growing past that. But at what point now? Because I hear that point, but it sounds like that's the only point you have.
Right. What I'm saying is
I will have
traditions
to
are what
paint.
created that.
Yeah, and so now,
Tradition created rebels and out of control.
okay, and
But at
now,
the end of the day, people
how do we get it
always-
back?
Huh?
How do we get it back?
how do we bring order from
Yeah.
here,
How do we bring
from this
order?
current place?
Mhm.
I will
By the
painfully
traditionalists.
push back on
Influence.
scam.
Okay,
How
well, that's
so?
but the influence is what's getting us there. That we believe a company believes they can hire someone and put their smiley face on the beer can, and that everyone's going to go out now and start doing that. A company believes that they can start selling swimsuits where you just get to tuck in the goods, and that people are now going to say, "Wow!" People out there believe that they can bring a child to watch a dance performance of people who are only wearing a string. That's influence. So are you sure that's the route we want to go?
That's not the influence I'm talking about. I'm talking
Oh, wait. That's not
Not
the influence we're
manipulation.
talking about, but the tradition wasn't always what you are talking about too. Tradition was about we are family, and some of this stuff we don't want to lose. Not every family was about beat. Not every single person got beat.
Okay. Now I'm lost, but because I don't know what traditions
And
are.
this is
anymore,
why
what y'all
I will
saying.
have to painfully push back on scam likely, because as I'm
Well, we all
listening,
don't want to dogpile him, but go ahead.
Yeah, some of this I don't know. I don't know even
I'll keep
what's
it
being
quick.
said.
I'll keep it quick. What he pushing for is to abolish tradition. If that is the case, then what you're asking for is to abolish structure and order.
No, didn't say that.
Hold on. Let me speak. You say effing burn tradition. What
Yes,
came out of tradition? Standards, structure, and order, value.
they were fake.
And no, not all
That's
tradition
why
are
they're
the
gone
same.
now. What are we talking about?
Hold on. The society we have right now is based on no tradition, no value, no structure, no order. What you pushing on it we call talking point. I'm speaking on reality. If there was no
Okay,
tradition,
I'm
there's no
tuning you out
structure.
because that's not what I said.
Hold on. I get what you're saying, but I listen carefully. What I'm trying to explain to you is very simple. If there was no tradition, there's no structure and order. There's no value. There's no standard. All you have is chaos. So why would you have a life? Why would I live a life with pure chaos, with no standards, no structure, no order? If that was the case, the society you live in right now will never exist. So you have to be logically inclined to think about that.
Tradition created the chaos.
Hmm. So
But it
here's
also
No,
what I want you to
created
do for.
some
Created
of
by
the.
tradition.
Yeah,
That's what
here's what I want you to do.
I will
I, li-
painfully
I like
disagree with
us.
you.
I like us to look at the definition of words, and we're not going to solve this tonight clearly.
I know,
This
but
is
I'll
But
the
just
when I
interesting
hear
part.
you scam, I'm like, yes, the the group that engaged in traditional type practices, what they spoke and how they enforced it, impact us to where now this is the world we live in. But we
Yes.
still actually still have traditions. So technically, there's still traditional people, but what they speak to and how they do it has changed to the point where the younger people feel like they don't have to listen. So it's not being traditional that got them there. It was those people who wanted to forward these traditions, did it in a certain way that they believed to be correct. And now we have traditions where we all go out to eat. This is the
Right.
tradition. We all go out to eat, and this is what we're doing. Tradition, because if you say traditional people, that means back in the day we didn't have these. When we went on vacation in the car, we actually looked at the cows. We tried to get the trucks to blow the horns, and we saw things. Maybe fell asleep for a long time. Now vacation looks so. This is a new tradition, not traditional people, but the new tradition is this. We went from watching to now the back of the car, the back of the seat had the DVD to now our own devices. The
Remember
new
DVD players?
tradition. So not traditional people, just the new practices and the way they enforce it. That's
Hmm.
what I want to challenge your message. I believe in what you're saying, but it's not the practice of being traditional because we still are that way.
Well, one part that I push back on is why people left the church and why shaming doesn't work with tradition.
Mhm.
The very people
With
who complain
tradition or with the message.
the message, the action, all of it. The very
Okay.
people who complain about kids on cell phones have a cell phone.
Mhm.
I'll leave it
Mhm.
at that.
Yep.
They
I
got
love
one.
that. Yeah, and I challenge that too. I said
And the
not
kids
challenge you.
know
I
it.
challenge those parents too. Why does your 7-year-old have a phone? Oh, they need it. They need it. What if they get touched by some adult? You think in the
Mhm.
middle of getting touched by some adult, they're like, hold on, Mister, please wait.
It's
Hello, come on.
right.
It's gonna be a tornado, and they need their phone. Cell service and during the tornado. So who's the phone for? It's probably for your insecurity parents. But
Exactly.
but the tradition is about my family's safety, and
Safety,
that went
No,
from that
security.
tradition. That went from that generation to
insecure
this.
insecurity is the tradition, and people know it. People
The
in my
Oh,
generation
that's going
practice,
to
know
be
it.
forever then.
the
We know it.
practice
Yeah.
of insecurity, the practice of insecurity, not the practice of tradition. The practice of insecurity during has
To
become
manifest.
traditional, right? The practice of being insecure has become our family tradition. Like we made it the norm here. And so because we made it the norm here, it impacted our children. And now look at them because of what we
Right.
made the norm, the tradition. And I'm saying it's going to take another tradition to change those behaviors, to reapproach, to not beat everyone, to not do this, to use critical thinking, to da da da, and make those the new norms to readjust. And I think Coach K is saying some of those new norms have gone way the other side. So we have to
And
find the balance.
to fight those traditions, for example, and I do like to believe that people had good intentions, but of course, like some of the things, for kids not to beat them, of course, was to not discipline them at all. And now they don't critically think because they haven't, they're allowed to do whatever they want. They don't get consequences. Or maybe they're protected so much and they're not allowed to be in a contentious situation where they got to figure it out, so they don't grow those critical thinking skills. But that's because the people were trying to go against the tradition of how they were raised. So, and I think I like Dr. Nakumbe's questions because, of course, like I'm a coach, I love questions. That's how we kind of pull out what we're like getting to, which it may be something underneath the umbrella of traditions. And I think this is really interesting too, Des. So I want to, say, because I want to get to like really specifically what is underneath all of this. You know what I mean?
Right.
In your perspective and your belief. No, you go ahead.
When he asked for a solution, it was like, all right, the beatings and the crazy stuff, which was fake, which was improper leadership, that was lacking everything, lacking actual needs. When he asked for a solution, like, what do we do? If we were to get rid of tradition, what do we replace it with? Critical thinking, problem solving, discipline, structure, but it's going to come from influential level. It has to be the top level of leadership. That requires active listening, proper evaluation. You got 3 kids, they are different. You need to listen to them different. You need to be more active. You need positive reinforcement. If you spend more time doing the right things the right way, you don't have to spend time chasing them out in the street with a belt.
Right.
Those conversations,
developing new traditions.
95% of the time, you only have to have them conversations. Same thing with the red pillars and the women. They just want to show up and be a man, and then he's obligated to this wife, 6 kids, and a dog. No. If you learn how to effectively communicate, be a better, more attractive, you don't have to sit here and beat her to death with a briefcase, come on, protect and provide.
Right.
She'll come home on time because she wants to be where you are, and she will not leave.
And
Same
30
thing.
years from now, they're going to say, I don't mean to cut you off, but 30 years from now, they're going to say, your traditions of red pilling and all that stuff, your traditions of masculinity and toxicity, your practices have led us to X, Y, and Z. So my only challenge again is how we are using that word traditions. I'm going to wrap up the show, but I want to invite again these conversations because they're good. And what happens is a lot of back and forth of just terms, just terminology is a lot of back and forth and agreements, just getting us to agree. We don't all have to agree, but we all have a common goal. We don't all have to do it the same way, but we have a common goal. And I want us to think about, because for those of you who listen to Sir Hale, for those of you who listen to Dust and everything, and everyone who's been up on the panels or in the chat, I want you to think about ways that we can become more collaborative. I want you to think about ways that we could actually say, you know what, from your perspective, let's pull in what Scam is saying about tradition. Got it. We understand the damage that's happened from tradition. Let's pull in what Sir Hale is saying, like, yeah, but still, we have to believe in family. And I am damned if I'm not going to teach my family to be a family. Okay, just don't beat them. Got it. I don't need to beat them, but I am going to set some expectations and some things that they just make sure that they're not lied to. Absolutely. Boom. Now we're taking some of what worked with tradition. We're developing some new traditions, and we're actually teaching our children. So moving forward, you want you to do X, Y, and Z. Lost in translation. All the people I mentioned earlier, they each have a message. Let's pull the best of what that works. We don't have to agree. Pull the best from what works. I say a clinical perspective, but that's not everything. Some people are totally fine with their edibles. Okay? So there are different ways of how we come to this. And as I told you earlier, I don't know if you heard it, Sir Hale, I was talking about how I went and listened to Pastor Sheila, who weeks before, I'm like, yeah, but, the higher power, and yeah. But I listened to her show, I'm like, man, hallelujah. Like, why didn't you say this earlier? Like, boom, like, oh, trauma, all that clinical stuff I talked about, and I listened to her. She did an entire show, and if any of you listen to Pastor Sheila, man, she was going like, blah, 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 bam. I was like, oh. And now I'm able to take that perspective, because a few weeks before that, if I use Scam's version, traditionally, I heard another person say, blah, 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 blah in the Bible. Yeah, that was the First Testament. We don't count that one. So anyway, and I'm like, oh, that's unique. You only take what you count. Oh, that's interesting. And then when I mentioned something else, I said, well, I believe in the Lord. And I said, okay. But then I wasn't moved. That's not for them to move me. But when I listened to Pastor Sheila, it wasn't so much that one was better than the other, but it was
Right.
exactly what you talked about. It was the explanation. I didn't hear just boom, I don't count that. It's because I said the Lord. It was boom, 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 boom. And I got to use my own critical thinking to adjust and to receive. I got to receive like, oh, and then I was enthused to take that forward. But if we're not able to do that because we're only talking these talking points, as Coach K was just talking about, okay, we highlighted the points and then, and I challenge all of us to look at how much of these talking points are still because we're deeply connected. We've been bruised or we've been enthused. We've been bruised or enthused, and we're really pushing these agendas, but how can we do it together? Tomorrow night,
Yeah, go ahead.
Coach K, I was just going to say tomorrow night is going to be another whole argument because on Barbershop, we'll be talking about how the women's
The women's.
What about the women?
Yeah, I love saying that. How the
Blame the
women
women's.
play
Blame
a
women's.
role. Yeah, but check this out. How they play a role but don't even realize it. And see, Sir Hale's talked about this before. I don't mean to be all on your tip tonight, but Sir Hale talked about this before about the parenting intentions are fabulous. But do you realize the impact? Do you realize the impact you're having? And my issues with, so if I'm mom, my issues with Papa, I'm dating Papa. I'm the one dating Papa. Sorry for the noise. I'm dating him. Our daughter and our son is not dating your father. My dating experiences are going to be different than your parent-child experiences. But if I rob you of that opportunity because of his broke tail, his this, his that, he hurt me, he hurt me, he hurt me, correct. And I don't want to take away from the fact that he hurt you. But isn't it unique that that same abusive, aggressive, hardcore man said, damn, this kid got me sitting up here crying and shit. Man, the kids changed me. The kids made me soft. I'll die for my shorty. I'll beat the hell out of his mama, but I'll die for my shorty. I'll die for my shorty. Your papa is an ass. Stay away. The same guy who just said, I will die for my shorty, is the one that we're telling them, stay away because he did me wrong. He's no good. But again, out of that big S word, security, believing that I'm keeping I made it by myself, we forgot about our kid. We'll be talking about that tomorrow.
Oh, good. I wanted to say really quick.
Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a great show.
Let me add real quick.
Coach K?
Real quick. One thing that I will say that is great about listening to, it doesn't have to be formal debate, but just I have personally really strengthened my views, or maybe got rid of some, and even my husband not being a believer, but he's getting closer, praise God. But him questioning the faith is what helped me, like, oh, those are some good questions and I don't know the answer. I'm going to go find out. And it has led me to discipleship, but also just listening to people that disagree with what I believe has actually helped me figure out why, and also find the weaknesses and the flaws in my own perspective. So I just wanted to add that to what Dr. Nakumbe was saying earlier. But go ahead.
It's like watching a movie multiple times. You see something new every time, whatever.
Every time, right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
can I
please do, and add your final thoughts, please.
So I really appreciate what Dr. Nakumbe and Coach K are doing. Whether we agree or not, one thing we can take from this is the aim to learn something else. And I think if we need anything, so maybe if I agree with Dusto or anybody that tradition is out of the place, and I say, okay, I think having the mindset to say, you know what, I've got a couple of puzzle pieces to add. You got a couple as well. Now let's figure out how we can put these puzzle pieces together, because as I've become a parent, I've become less critical of my parents. It's amazing what a little shift in perspective can make you see things a little bit differently. And I think what we need now is to not look for a perfect solution, but a more complete solution, which is very different. And that's going to take some time. So what works for us in the 2020, 2020 to 2030 is going to be very different in 2030. And I think as long as we have the mindset to adjust, have our core, I think that's really what we need. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. And it's not a shot, but I'm just saying part of the problem with traditional thinking, A, B, C. Well, how about D, E, F, G, and there's a bunch of no, A, B, C. Taught not to listen, taught not to reason, taught not to think outside the box or ask why, how. And it happens amongst people of all ages, even the parents, grandparents. It restricts the conversation. Hey, you didn't say A. Why we can't beat them? Beat them, beat them, beat them. What do you mean taking on traditions? Huh? That's one of the traditional.
We're bringing up the D, right. C, wait, whatever letters you brought up. That's what we're doing here, which is great. So, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And this is why I wanted to suggest in that episode. This is why I wanted to suggest it.
Yeah, go ahead, CBN.
We want to suggest the next episode, both Dr. Nakumbe and Coach K, if you can have Sahel speak to come along with the conversation, because I believe, as I'm listening, I hate to say that Dr. McComb, you did a great job on the Health Speak show when you had Mom, Pastor Sheila on it. And they were able to get a deep level of clarity. Now, this series you're doing right now, I believe we need another angle, because as I'm listening, there's a lot of things that people can learn from this episode and can add more to it. But I'm guessing there's another angle behind that. And maybe Sir Health Speak can add to that conversation if that's possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm
yes, now I love it. Now the next 2 weeks, because this is a 3-part series of the actual presentation that I do, it would actually be the third week where we actually get in. So the next week I'm going to talk about dismantling, and then the week after that is the build up. So dismantle and then the rebuild. And we would love to then have those multiple perspectives. So absolutely.
You guys are critical in this community. I hate to say that. You, Dr. McCumbe, Coach K, you guys are very, very critical. And these series, in these Thursday nights shows, it's needed. That's why I'm asking that.
You got it. You got it. 2 things. We have Lost in Translation in the house. I don't have the buttons. I don't have the buttons. But just before I hand you the mic, sir, I want you to think of one thing for us for scam, because as much as when we're trolling, not mocking, serious, whatever, I'm still going to salute this brother who's trying to make an effort to stand with that bullseye on, right? Because when he stands, he's still a human being with the bullseye on, taking the darts. Oh, dude, and scan dust and dust. Some of it is fun, and some of it is still someone reminding us that a particular style has caused damage. So in the light of all the fun and exchange, that still I'm going to honor. We are going to honor. I'm asking all of us to still honor every perspective. And then the last part of that challenge will be for you, Dusto, and that is if you were to take track and actually mark how many times you said the exact same thing during the show about the tradition. So I actually marked down 6 times that you said the exact same thing, speaking point. So at some point I want to say, hey, let's invite whoever you feel most comfortable with. Let's have a show, let's really get it out. Because another thing I noticed that we do, depending who the person is, but I've done it, we're quick to cut scam off. Now, I'll say me. I'm putting it on me. There are times when I'm speaking over. And if you've noticed, I've noticed every time that scam has said, my bad, you go. Oh, go ahead. I got you. You go. So even though we're saying, yeah, we'll change, we got to change and we'll change, but indirectly / directly, we're still doing the same thing that scam is warning us about. Oh, my bad. Go ahead. Yeah. So in an indirect way, direct way, we still are engaging in the very thing that he's warned us about. I want to do better by by saying, hey, it's not just you get a couple words and then I just talk over like you don't matter. I want us to be able to have those full, and you're not one of the people that just go and go and go and go and then tell a story and go and go and go. So you're not even one of those people. You make your points and boom. But I'm going to start making sure I'm more honorable in the space that you're speaking in and not just interject once I heard something or part of it that I didn't like. So I just wanted to say that I'll be doing that. I can't speak for others, but I want to honor that space for you. So that's my little piece.
I appreciate it.
Got it. Lost in translation. What's up? And
how you doing, sir? How you doing, Coach K?
Good to see you.
Good. How are you?
Good.
Thanks for coming up here.
Good. I think the reason why Doc wanted me to come up because he was on my live Friday and he saw what we talked about epigenetics and how nature and nurture can combine synergistically to create something totally different.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes there are things that you can control, and then there's some things that you don't have an awareness that you don't have a control of. Now, as much as we like to think that we're in total control of ourselves, there's some things that are just not. And until we actually address those things and improve upon those things instead of just sweeping it under the rug, we won't move forward. And that was the whole gist of my entire life, was to make sure that we're aware of the things that we're not aware of, that also makes up the components of who people are and their different personalities based upon their particular baked in traumas and traumas that they have been introduced to over time. And the problem with that is you don't know what you don't know until you don't know it. So I think that's a lot of problems with a lot of people, is that we don't know where to begin. So with that being said, I'm glad you guys have started this particular talk, so we can at least have a conversation in good faith on how we're going to tackle something like this, because everybody's experience is different. You see what I'm saying? And everybody doesn't experience the same thing. Everybody doesn't learn the same way. Just to credit Dusto, everybody doesn't learn or are affected by the same motivation. Some people are motivated positively, which is good. Some people are motivated negatively. You know, if you play football, if coach yelled at you, it lit a fire under your tail. Some people responded, and some people don't. But as wisdom comes along, and as a guide, you have to know the difference between what motivates certain people and certain people don't. Mm-hmm. So until we actually have a conversation with each individual and say, hey, what is your learning style? How do you like to learn? Are you a hands-on type of person? Or is it a person you like to hear things? Like, to me, I like to watch things. I like to put my hands on stuff because I learn better that way. And then how I share it is how I really submit it in. If I know a subject, if I can teach it, then that's even better. I got a philosophy: learn, do, teach. Learn as much as you can, do as much as you can, and teach as much as you can. And that way you pass on that information and that knowledge to somebody else. And what they do with it after that, that's on them. So that's my whole point of coming up and let you know that there are different things that we're exposed to, and there are some things that we're unaware that we're exposed to that make us up who we are.
That's perfect. I gotta go check out that show because that was perfect. I can't even add anything else to. I think Dr. Nakumbe might be. I don't know if he said anything, but he's muted. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Please, thank you. Please check out that show, because many content providers provide speaking points.
Right.
If you've not already seen the Lost in Translation show, it wasn't just speaking points. There was the data to back it up. Mm-hmm. There was the research, like showing you what the others, what their research was. Full explanation. I'm not talking about like a 5-hour show. I mean, within this time frame of being able to, if you bring ready to learn and ready to take some stuff away, it was beautifully orchestrated. And I'm not just saying that to blow smoke. What I'm saying is, yes, please check out the show. It was last Fridays, so please check it out, and other shows there as well that he has, or videos that he has. But it was beautifully coordinated. If you guys know about whiteboards, you know, the kind of being able to break things out on the whiteboard, mm-hmm. And having experts on there, video, testimony, conversations. Please check it out. Lost in Translation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
I'll definitely. Just for what you said, I'm already like that's my ish. You know, it's not. I can tell.
I'm like, this is my jam right here.
I can tell it's not talking points and just like oh, I read this somewhere. You know, like I could
Yes.
tell you.
No, I want to give people something that they can sink their teeth into,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
something that they can take on their own and they can learn and study on their own, and something that's different to the space. That particular element is something that is never talked about, but it is something that
Right.
is ever present, and we just need to be
Right.
aware of things like that.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I love it. I love it.
Wigs. And I'm assuming, Scam, you did get in your final word, I believe. If you didn't, please do. Wigs, beautiful, animated. Please, what would be your final thoughts? And then Coach K will wrap us up.
Just self-evaluate, do your research on yourself. That's the best way to start your growth.
Okay. Okay. And then Scam, just I don't want to assume, did you get in your final word or you have one more?
Yeah, I'll try to make it quick. It's kind of weird because sometimes I feel when I speak, I'm speaking for those who don't have the microphone, aside from just myself. I'm good, but there's a lot of people who are not, and they don't have the microphone, or their microphone was beat out of them, or restricted, or they're in a position where they can't speak. No one listened to these people because they
That
didn't
makes
have
sense.
to, or they chose not to.
Mm-hmm.
There's an unlimited supply of people who are out of control. It started with tradition being the norm, and it ended up here. That tells you what the leadership was of tradition. Some of it was by people, some of it was by the actual plan. We don't need to repeat and go back and end up in the same situation all over again. Something needs to change.
That makes sense.
Like that.
Coach K, just jump in really quick with the clinical perspective on what Scam just said.
You close us out.
To our listeners, this is a clinical perspective on what Scam just said. Until you lived it, I want you to understand the significance that trauma and the significance of what's called extreme or highly sensitive people. The significance of people that are considered extreme or highly sensitive. So when I just heard what Scam said about, it's not only about what but it's for those who've had it beat out of them. For those who've actually been beaten, there's not enough times that Scam could say it. There are not enough times that he could say it. Even when I just sit back and think, damn, I just finished telling him, dude, you said 6 times the same. Ain't that a bitch? For the people who've been scarred, a brain injury with trauma from ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. They don't have to always be beat, but they've been scarred.
Fair.
There isn't enough, there isn't a number that satisfies their inadequacy. When they have meetings, do you notice those type of people, the sensitive people, like, okay, clearly I'm not going to be heard. Like, damn, no one, when they speak and they don't believe people hear them. No, swear to God, no, yeah, and then calm down. I am calm. The level of safety for the average person, we'll just say it's here. The level of safety for those people who've been told what to do, who've had it beat out of them, who've been directed, guided, subjugated, meaning they bowed down without say so. They lost choice and they lost voice. And as an adult, they finally feel like I have choice and I have voice and now I'm free. But what in the hell am I free to? I've been released, an adult now. I've been released into this mad world. And I'm thinking, what in the hell? Oh my God, I have a voice for what now? So I just want to give a clinical perspective for us to think about. And myself included, when I just heard Scam, I'm like, oh shit. If you've experienced trauma and to the point where you felt something was hurt, something was taken from you, your voice, your ability to choose, pain, and memories that when you think about them, they shut you down. There's no number of times that someone is advocating for you that will satisfy you. And that's highly significant. I just wanted to put that out there like, whoa, from me clinically, that made sense. I hope that makes sense for other people. Again, not to justify it, but just to give another perspective like, When we are hurt, how many times have we been in an argument and we say the same thing over and over and over? And it's like, God damn, how many times do you have to say it? Well, because you act like you're not listening. I heard you loud and clear. Like, what else you want me to? Because that person doesn't feel heard, but they've never forgotten the pain behind not being heard. And each time you don't hear them, that adds to the pain. I'll land on that spot. Again, lost in translation. Thank you for coming out. It was an honor to have you.
Thank you,
Stan
sir.
Lucky, salute to you for presenting what you did and wearing that bullseye. Yes, yes. Beautiful animated wigs. Thank you always. I can see you, our sergeant at arms in the house. Yes, yes, yes. CBN, as always, you are the glue behind the scenes that makes it happen. Thank you for extending the time and being here with us. A shout out to the Black Man Unfiltered Network. Please do tune in tomorrow for that spicy conversation. Remember, it's the barbershop. So we will be having a serious conversation, but imagine you went someplace where you get to let your hair down. You get to let your hair down and talk how you want to talk. So I just want to be fair and say, please don't come there expecting that you're going to hear everything perfectly in the way that it. No, it's the barbershop. You just get to tune in. You just get to hear a piece of it. And we invite people to be part of that conversation as well, where we are going to talk about the impact that women have, the role women play, and the impact that they have without even knowing about it, and the ones who know about it. Coach K, always an honor to work with you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for doing this together. Remember, next week is part 2, where we're going to talk about dismantling, which is not going to be as easy because we're talking about taking away your safety. If your coping skill was to eat an edible and numb yourself, and we talk about, hey, your edibles, what are you doing to your health? If you was eating greasy chicken, and if I'm talking about, hey, your nutritional value is destroying but that was your comfort food. So don't let it fool you. Next week, when we're talking about dismantling, between the time we dismantle and the time you rebuild is sensitive and scary. But let's have the conversation.
Yep.
Peace to everyone in the chat. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye.
Go. Fire by night and a pillar of vapor by day. Walk through the desert, but when you admire the light, see the villains are paper mache. I'm on the way to the promised land, no contraband. I'm an honest man, I'm coming. Y'all met me, I'm set free, playing my part like the Red Sea. Man, I'm from heaven, I'm here with my brother in the volumes 11. Now we're getting rowdy.